So here's the pitch, okay? We've all seen Miss Swifts. It's that outtake show, and it was running it in. I saw chat spamming when I told Jordan to focus. So we're gonna run with that. Strike while the iron is hot. Jordan sitting at his desk at the video team section. I don't know what they do. I don't care what they do. But for the premise of this video, cannot be focused. Watching anime butts on one screen. I don't care what he's doing. Just can't be working. All right. And then he hears Miss Swifts. Big TV right behind him. Miss Swifts playing. Here's the line. Says Jordan, focus. Okay. And then his eyes go wide. He turns around, turns off the TV. He's trying to get rid of me. He knows he's not focused, but he knows he needs to be. But goes back to his desk, goes back to doing whatever he's doing. But he has to focus. So I'm at his window. Boom, slam on the window. I'm like the Babadook, okay? He doesn't know where I'm coming from. I slam the window, piece of paper, says focus. He does a little bit. He focuses a little bit. He doesn't turn off the anime butts. No. He flips his hat around, Ash Ketchum style. I don't know. And then he goes back to doing anything he wants, but not focusing. That's not enough for me. That's not enough for hi-rez. It's not enough for what we stand for. So I appear behind the wall behind him, okay? Boom, Mifflin, up there. I tell him to tighten up. He needs to focus. He does a little bit more. He focuses a little bit, but not enough, okay? And then it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me, okay? We have to go even further beyond that, all right? He does eventually close the screen, but that's not enough. I'm still appearing. I'm appearing everywhere. I'm in the bathroom. I'm in his cereal. I'm in his snacks. I'm telling him to focus, and eventually he switches desks. I'm under his desk, okay? I'm telling him to focus there, and that's where it happens. He sits in a maxonomic chair, his eyes dilate, and he finally finds his focus.
Okay. Approved.
I sold it? I sold it! Yes! I'm gonna sell so many chairs.
Jordan, what the was that? We just lived a fever dream. I have no idea what just happened, and we approved it.
What kind of anime butts we talking? What kind of anime butts we talking?
Welcome back, SMITE fans. We are getting geared up and ready to go for the second set of the day here for the Phase 2 playoffs. But first, we got to let you know about our chair sponsor, Maxonomic. If you haven't been hearing about them, then how did you find this stream in the first place? Because it's clearly your first time here. Needforseat.com, the place to go for the best gaming chair on the market. We all love our Maxonomics. Big shout out to them. And thanks, of course, for sponsoring us here in Season 8 of the SPL. Aggro, Inbound, and Taco still here with us in order to break down a set that we're expecting big things from between the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans. Kind of a tale of two different teams, Bobby. I mean, the Dragons, Phase 1 playoff victors, haven't looked their best as of late, though. The Titans making a roster change. They're looking much better. How do you think this matchup's going to play out?
I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty good matchup. Like you said, it's one team coming on the up, one team kind of coming down to earth. Like the Dragons were a magical team Phase 1 playoffs, like you said, and they just have not looked the part towards this second place playoffs. And
not forgetting that this was their hardest matchup at Phase 1 playoffs, Taco. The Titans gave them the hardest run, it looked like.
Yeah, for a second there, in the Split 1 playoffs, it almost seemed as though the Dragons might not even have had a chance to advance because of the Titans that they played, and that was before the roster changes had even taken place. And I think one of the main things I'm kind of keeping an eye on is really just that mid-jungle dynamic, because if anything, Tartarus Titans have looked like they have really been amping it up leading into the Split 2 playoffs with some of their recent set performances, and I would almost say the opposite for the Jade Dragons, but again, it's the Jade Dragons. You can never really count these guys out.
And anytime the Jade Dragons, it's time for playoff time. You know, this is a team that has been saying all along that they're not too stressed about the regular season. They're looking towards the playoff events and world championships, of course. And it begins and ends with this team, as it always has, in my opinion, with Polar Bear Mike in that support role. I mean, Bobby, as a support player yourself, it feels to me, from the outside looking in, that Mike is a huge part of this team. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, 100%. 90% of their game revolves around what is Mike doing? Can we help Mike? Where is Mike going? Can we fight around Mike? It's almost always around Mike, whether he is playing around Panda and Duo, whether he's roaming with Sam, whether he's looking for an invade with Fine or whatever. It always revolves around Mike, and that's, I think, the biggest thing. Maybe teams will eventually kind of figure it out is wherever Mike is, that's where the team is looking to play.
And that's what it has been for a while, but just because teams know it's coming doesn't mean they're able to stop it, and that's really been the problem for a lot of squads up against this team throughout the years. Of course, these two teams did play in the final week of Phase 2 regular season, but a game that didn't mean anything really, and both teams kind of had their fair share of fun with their selections during that set. So don't think that should factor into what we're going to see here today. But I can't help but look at how this dual lane matchup's going to go. I mean, we saw dual lane be so important in the last set. I feel like it's going to be maybe even more important this time around.
Yeah, I think you've got two of the most tenured dual lanes like laning together in the entire league right now, and you have them going against each other. I think it's exciting. I think it really depends on pressure. I think pressure is a lot of what the Dragons play around. I don't think the Titans care that much about it, but there's some games where they commit to pressure also. Originally, Izanami is one of their favorite picks, and it's because of that pressure that it provides. So I wonder if Izanami is maybe going to be one of those proud picks in this draft.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Before we get into what the Titans might be doing in this set, though, we got to talk to PBM himself. He's joining us for our pregame interview today. Mike, thanks for taking the time. Before we get into today's matchup, I want to get your thoughts on the fact that you might be going up against the Camelot Kings if you're able to win it. They chose your end of the bracket. Did that surprise you at all?
Given our regular split performances, no, but it's a little bit of disrespect, I think. If we win this match, they're getting 3-0'd.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, now we know, so now there's no drama. Thanks, Mike, I suppose. Look, your team...
Any semifinal Max and I play, it's a 3-0. That's it.
That is true.
It's that simple.
Oh, well, they must not have known that. Maybe they can change it up now that they might have.
Ben knows that damn well. He got 3-0'd on a bay. Roll back the tape.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry.
Somehow we didn't get those replays set up for you. That's on us, I suppose. Yeah. Look, your team has been talking about how, it's not super. They're not super concerned about the regular season and focusing on worlds and playoff events and that kind of stuff. Are you guys ramped up and ready to go now that it is a playoff event?
Yeah, we had on Monday things were looking real not great. And I think we had a really good week of practice, and I'm feeling pretty good coming into it. We'll see if the things that we adjusted towards and all of the arguments, discussions of all of those things kind of led us the right direction. And if not, we can pack it up real quick.
Yeah, that's simple. On the other side, the Tartarus Titans, they've got a new addition, Layers. They're in the honeymoon phase with a new player joining in, and they're playing what looks to be their best Smite of Season 8. What have you seen from them since Layers has joined the squad?
They just look like they have a lot more... They just have a lot more playmaking potential, and they're more proactive. Layers is just clearly a more comfortable jungler than Scary was. We haven't really played this roster a whole lot. Last week's match means pretty much nothing for either team. I don't think anyone should base any opinions off of that. If Aurora locks in Pele, again, we're packing it up real quick, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, we haven't played this team. I think they definitely are a lot stronger with Layers, so it should be fun.
Someone's doing some packing. That's what I've learned from this interview at the very least. Mike,
Yeah,
good
why
luck
not?
today, man. Excited to see what happens. There he is, the support for the Jade Dragons, Polar Bear Mike. And he's right, man. Aurora on that Pele looks lethal. So that is something that they might have to ban, Taco.
But you're telling me the Tartarus Titans aren't looking out for that Ratatosker performance from Mike? And again, I mean, even during that Week 8 interview, Aurora was mentioning he was kind of disappointed in the fact that Mike didn't take the Rata the first time around when he locked in the Pele.
It's true. Well, maybe that's... Now that they know the counter matchup, they're good. Yeah, perfect place to start right here with Aurora Pele. Look, I don't think Panda Cat's going to be locking in Giannis ADC after that performance. That's I think we can leave it at that. But this Titans team, they do look a lot more confident. They seem to be in a position where they're playing the map a little bit more proactively. But it still takes time for a new jungler to kind of get adjusted to the team. Right, Bobby?
Yeah, I think there's like 3 phases when you get a new jungler. It's kind of like that honeymoon phase, like you said, where everything just seems to click. You're all on the same page. People are excited about plays that are being made. And then maybe you start losing some games, and that confidence starts disappearing, and maybe the wins start losing, or you start losing a little bit more too. And I think it's kind of how you get out of that phase. Do you get out of that phase by talking to each other, learning, communicating more, or do you hit that, or do you just stay in that phase the entire time? And I think they're still probably in that honeymoon phase, and I think this set kind of decides where they're going to kind of move on from that.
And you start losing. You start saying, please don't pick Bastet every game. Oh, no, that's just your jungler that you have to worry about doing that with, right?
Yeah. Bastet jungle. We got really worried about picking that.
Clearly not, man. Scream was going off on that. I do have to put some
Terra,
respect on that.
Yeah, the Terra, though, he convinced us. He might see some more Terra.
Why? Out of him or out of you?
I think he's better than me with it. I might have to put it in the jungle from now on.
No, please, God, no. I don't have to think about that at all, luckily, because hopefully neither the Dragons nor the Titans will be picking Terra jungle in this matchup. Taco, I mean, what do you think? You mentioned mid-jungle or the keys in this game. Do you expect to see some prioritization there in picks and bans at the start, or do you still think that duo lane and that pressure is going to be more important?
given the fact that it's up against the Tartarus Titans, or excuse me, the Jade Dragons, I do think that the Titans might want to prioritize a duo lane just because we know how potent the Dragons can be whenever they get some favorable matchups.
Well, let's see what happens. Picks and bans ready to go now for game number 1 between the Dragons and the Titans. The Dragons in that first pick position. We saw a lot of mage priority in the first set of the day, though that kind of happens whenever Shinto is there. And Hurrowind's God pool is a little bit different than a lot of other mid laners. Yeah, he'll play the Raijin, of course, and the Tiamat, but Sol and Giannis, the two gods that I've thought of for him in this phase.
Yeah, like you said, it's just a completely different kind of style. Shinto has that get him as much farm as we can, and we'll play through Shinto, while Hurry is more, just get the farm you can, Hurry. We're not saving anything from you for you. It's on you to get to the spots you need to be. But that Janus pick is something that the Jade Dragons do play really strong around because they can play around that duo pressure and just have that Janus rotation from mid.
Kabrakan first overall ban here, Taco. Why?
Fine, okay. I think from that Soul and Lane presence has definitely been favoring some Guardians, and Kabrakan is something that I think only enhances the Jade Dragons' playstyle as a team because they've got a lot of synergy going into things outright, but I think it's the lockdown potential that Tartarus Titans are really concerned about because you got to think about some of the things that Paul likes to play. You're working around the Morrigan, even layers with gods like Camazotz, for example. A lot easier to get locked down against the Kabrakan, and maybe even Odin managing to kind of work his way through the cracks. Surprisingly enough, I would almost say that for the Jade Dragons, Kabrakan could be a much more devastating pick than Odin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like when you're a player, of course, they're going to go through some mock drafts and that kind of stuff and guess what the Titans are going to ban against them. I don't know that I would have guessed that they're going to ban Kabrakan first, especially, but Kabrakan at all in the top 3, and there's something to be said for that because having all your prep think, okay, they are definitely banning Tiamat from us, or they are definitely banning Odin from us. And all of a sudden they aren't through their first 2, you've got to adjust on the fly, and sometimes that can make you make a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. And this Kabrakan could be banned for any sort of reasons. It could be a bad matchup for something they're planning on picking. It could be a start that Kabrakan can do because of how his kit works, that Tremors allows him to clear waves just like in the middle of everything. It's a bunch of different things you can do, and he has flex potential. Yeah, I think the cab is just a decent ban.
Also have to remember that Paul has been running a lot of the Hell as of late as well, and I think that Kabrakan it's more about what he's able to restrict that the Titans want to run. I'm right there with Bobby on. I don't think it's so much that they're concerned that it's an OP pick by any means. It just releases a lot of the stress, I think, from some of the backline in terms of not wanting to get shut out from the engagements, although Yamoja with that River's Rebuke certainly introduces a lot of that separation factor, but I like the combination of the Tiamat plus the Osiris, a little bit of early game presence to kind of cut through some of the early game woes that the Tiamat can experience.
Man, I mean, just so much open. This is like when you get in that ranks lobby and they're just passing the bans because they just can't be asked. Like Yamoja, Tiamat, Osiris, the top 3 picks in this game. You want to talk about playing with fire? I mean, we're talking powerful kits in this game already. But it's the Titans who end up with 2 out of 3 of those priority picks, right? Being in that second pick position. So their banning strategy certainly paying off, at least to some degree.
And because there were so many OP picks early, the Titans were actually able to get a few counters in the matchups. Yamoja, one of the strongest gods in the game. However, she does struggle partially with Osiris. Osiris can walk through that wall, builds Wingblade very easily, and Yamoja kind of struggles playing against that Wingblade. It fares a lot better than that Gilg did from the first game today.
Yep.
So I actually really like that Osiris-Tia combo into the Yamoja.
And it's hell for Hurrowin. You mentioned it for Paul, and for good reason, because that's been a priority pick for him. But it's Hurry this time locking in the hell alongside the Erlong Shen. So your mid 3v3 is now set on both sides. You want to talk about where the prioritization lies? I think we see it for both of these drafts. 3v3 is locked in. Which do you like more, Taco?
Definitely leaning a little bit more towards the Tartarus Titans currently, just because I like their responsive factors to what the Jade Dragons have opted for. The Fafnir as well, also another god that has a reliable escape outside of that River's Rebuke. I think he has a lot of chase potential as well, and Osiris and Fafnir are both immediately gods that I think can impose themselves into the backline. They're not really gods that you can prevent from reaching your carries unless the Jade Dragons to look for a pick outright. But I do think that prioritizing this Erlong Shen, this is definitely looking more like a feast or famine sort of idea from the Jade Dragons, because Erlong Shen does not have a lot of wiggle room in terms of if he gets caught out in the early game, he's not going to have a very fun mid and late.
Bobby, how do you feel about these two 3v3s locked in so far?
I think the Titans is just easier to run. Like Taco said, playing that Erlang into Fafnir, Tia, Osiris, if he falls behind, he is near worthless what he's going to be able to do. I just think the Titans have a lot more flexibility, and if they fall behind, they can still do a good chunk because of the guys they picked.
I mean, Tiamat, pretty good even when she falls behind, so it makes some sense there as we see a Rom ban and a Chernobog ban, so a couple Hunters taken off the board. Danzaburo is open, and that's something that Panda Cats liked, though I don't think Cyclone's going to pick it up against the Emoja, as we saw what happened to Vote in that style of matchup. So we'll see which direction they want to go, as it's an AMC ban now, so it isn't a mobile Hunter, but not the same as that Danzaburo as I was just talking about. AMC the pick here, for banned away, I should say, from Panda Cat.
Cyclone Spin possibly leaning more towards the Izanami. You have to remember he's one of the primary players, or hunters I should say, that brought this pick to light in the first place and wants to keep it going here. Also going to work very nicely, I think, with the Fafnir. Has a reliable escape for the most part from what the Jade Dragons have opted for, and I think there's a lot of value as well in the Dark Portal silence up against the likes of an Erlong Shen and Hell. It's really just seeming like the Tartarus Titans are trying to prevent Sam from participating.
And Benji gets the counter pick option in the solo lane. They're letting his pick go last, and he's going to go up against the Sobek over there in the solo lane. Not a lot of counter picks to that pick, Bobby. I mean, Sobek is just going to crocodile in your lane, and then he's going to team fight you later. Like, that's all he does.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything you're like, oh, I'm so glad I got that against this Sobek. It's just kind of like, well, like maybe another Guardian, just something that can just sit in the lane and just be as effective late game. I think they kind of held the Osiris. I know it's only been played in the jungle so far, but Osiris still does have that flex potential. So going into this last pick, that Osiris could still go to Benji too. So
it's a good point. Certainly could, as it is Danzaburo there for Panda Cat alongside that Yemoja. So it's a pretty good kill potential in that lane. That's a lane that has to be pretty scary between the CC and damage they bring.
It can be potent, but at the same time, I'm also looking at, there's Gilgamesh, Cerberus. I think both of those would be really strong last pick assets here. And as Bobby was talking about, it's not a guarantee that this Osiris is intended for layers, although we've seen him run it more often than not. It is relatively open-ended here. I like the idea, though, of having the strong initiation presence, at least, from the Emoja and the Danzaburo. Maybe try and force out some of those escapes from this front line, or excuse me, from this back line out of the Tartarus Titans. That way, Hell, Erlong can have a little bit more opportunity, at least, to just look for that rundown factor.
Camazotz is the hover, and I was thinking, if it is going to be Osiris solo, what pick would layers go to? And Camazotz came to mind, though Benji does play this in solo quite a bit as well, so still some ambiguity with these picks, but Camazotz the option, does not bring any CC, and I would say the Titans overall pretty CC light in this draft, but they've got a lot of damage and a lot of dive. Can Hurwin survive through all this dive is the real question.
yeah, I think the biggest thing is just relying on this Hell. Can Mike peel out the Hell enough? Can this Hell survive that onslaught of dives? Because the Titans don't really have that re-engage. It's not that constant engage, that constant threat. It's like Fafnir ults, Osiris ults, Cam ults, and they have basically nothing else.
Right.
So it really is, can Hurry survive that initial dive?
How difficult is that as a support player, knowing that, like, hey, my mid laner is going to get gunned down in this game? How does that change your mindset throughout the team fight?
I mean, it's a lot easier to deal with it when you know only one of them is going to be getting dove. When you're playing like a Khepri with Zeus AMC and you have two gods you have to protect, it's a lot harder. When you know it's going to be the Hell the entire time, you basically just stare down the Hell. Make sure you are always positioned near the Hell. If you're looking for an engage, you keep that Hell in the back of your mind. It still is difficult because you know there's going to be 3, 4, maybe even 5 gods because of the comp that are going to be diving this Hell.
I mean, Taco, as an ADC player, when you've got a Hell on your team, you know you're likely going to be able to free cast a little bit more. Is Danza the type of hunter that you feel like you can make plays with in that regard?
For the most part, I think that Panda Cat is probably one of the better hunters in terms of positioning, so I don't really expect him to be prevented, so to say, but I think it's more so the issue of whether it's Osiris solo or Camazotz solo. I think that's kind of irrelevant because both of those gods are more than capable of isolating one carry at a time, and I think that that's more of an issue here for the Jade Dragon, simply because if you look at Osiris' damage or Camazot's damage, so much burst potential that I think they can realistically, the Titans at least, can just look to really just run it down in the early game, not even really try to factor in the team fighting presence, because crowd control doesn't matter if you have an early advantage just from picks in the early game.
That is true. The Jade Dragons certainly CC heavy in comparison to the Titans in general, but just among their 5 gods, I would describe this as a CC heavy draft up against a pretty CC light draft. Which do you favor in those types of matchups, Bobby? Do you prefer to be on the end that has more CC but is maybe harder to execute, or the CC light draft?
When you look at drafts like this, it's kind of, they have strengths in different parts of the game. This Titans team wants to get ahead early, and they want to be able to kill that hell as quickly as possible. And the Jade Dragons want to kind of get to late game, be able to heal up, farm up, and just get to that 5v5, that actual portion where they can just push the leads there. I think it makes it easier playing with CC. It's always easier to hit an ability when somebody's sitting stunned right in front of you than it is to just kind of throw an ability out and try to hit someone.
I agree, Taco. I'm always partial to CC heavy comps. How do you feel about it?
I think I would like the CC heavy a little bit more so if it wasn't for the fact that I think that the Titans just have such incredibly strong early game that it might not even be. It's not as detrimental, I guess, to have to deal with stuns or plucks or tail whips or even the riptides out of the Emoja if you just outright have more damage early on, because you don't have to keep re-aggressing. You just take them out when you first jump in. And Osiris, Camazotz, again, these are both picks that I think could feasibly rotate very early on, and they're gods that can clear the waves and make the impact in mid before Sobek even has a chance to begin finishing clearing out anything.
But for what it's worth, the Titans are not a team that has been early game slanted this whole season. I do not think of this team as one that pushes early leads super well. They usually take these games pretty late. Do you view that as a potential problem here, Bobby, with this draft?
No, because I think their comp scales almost as well. Maybe if you ignore a lot of healing, I guess, that the Jade Dragons have. But this Titans comp scales incredibly well. Izanami team fights super well. She's not getting dove by something scary late game. Fafnir late game, insane. Tia late game, insane. So even if this Titans team can't win in 20, 25, maybe even 30 minutes, they scale well enough to be able to fight into the enemy team.
Yeah, they do have good anti-heal applicators as well. I mean, Brawlers for someone like a Camazotz, Divine for Tiamat, those are all pretty good options. Do you find yourself feeling the same way, Taco, that the Titans don't need to win in the first 25?
I think that it's fair to say that the team fights really could go either direction post 20 minutes or not. I think it's more so about the Jade Dragons being able to maintain some form of stability throughout those laning phases, especially because, again, I just see so much immediate pressure from this Titans composition in comparison to that from the Jade Dragons. It's a little bit more intricate out of the Dragons, but they are a team where time and time again, as far as execution is concerned, they are almost always delivering.
Almost ready to get the game started, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate your patience with this, but we should be getting into game very soon. It's the Jade Dragons up against Tartarus Titans, game number 1. It's all centered around what Hurlwin's going to be able to do on this hell, or if Panda Cat can make enough plays happen while his hell is getting slaughtered in the back line in order to kind of recoup some of those losses. If you're Hurry, are you building a lot of defense here, Bobby? Because I'd be scared building defense, but that's just me.
Yeah, I think you're going to see like the Paul-esque build where it's going to be a starter item, a big power item, and then like a mantle, and you're just going to hope that you can just live that onslaught of damage.
Yeah, you kind of have to up against a dive like this. Well, let's see what Hurwin's able to do. Game 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans about to start. We got Dolson and Gormizer. What a treat for game number 1.
That's right, you got Dolson, Gore, and Doug. How can you forget Doug, Aggro, for game 1 between the Jade Dragons and the Tartarus Titans? The Jade Dragons defending their crown from the Phase 1 playoffs. Their run starts here now, and then the Tartarus Titans, a team that has made some changes in this phase. Maybe the favorites, sneaky favorites for some as the potential team to win here in the Phase 2 playoffs. Gore, what an absolute matchup we've got here in the quarterfinals. Both of these teams have a very real route to the finals.
A wildly different set, I expect, today than what we saw last Sunday when these two played each other.
You and I were casting that one as well.
Yeah,
right?
we cast the last Dragons-Titans game together, and I expect this one to be a much more down-to-earth kind of set from them. But it is also worth noting, this is a team, the Titans team, pre-layers, that in the Phase 1 playoffs, round 1 in those quarterfinals, pushed the Dragons to the 5th game. They pushed them the entire way, and they were the only team to do so that weekend.
This is a very volatile Titans team, for better or for worse. Right now in the duo lane, Cyclone a little bit for worse. How about in the jungle, though? Layers is taking a good bit of damage as well. That Mannequin Scepter for Sanford Soccer doing some good work here early on, brawling out with that Kamizats.
And it looked like Benji was willing to make the rotation over there. That's actually a huge deal. Fine, okay, Sobek is so crucial, but now Layers is caught out.
Oh, so much damage from Sam, and they capitalized. The Jade Dragons on the board first. 1 minute and 15 seconds into the game, Gore. The writing was on the wall. Layers took a lot of damage. On the outside of the mid lane just a moment ago, you have to respect the pin. He doesn't have beads this early on. That was clean and simple here for the Jade Dragons.
And that's going to be a nice early lead,
Whoa,
especially if Cyclone gets taken down.
Cyclone's got to be careful here as well. There is an onslaught from the Jade Dragons, not only in the mid lane, but here on the left side of the map. And this is a perfect start for this Danza. You want to be ahead on this pick. Fighting from behind, not comfortable, so Panda Cat's in a good spot early.
I mean, we saw earlier what can happen at a Danza Burrow. Granted, that was into a Yamoja as well, so there were a lot of things that maybe didn't go well for Vote in that game. But it also is worth noting Panda Cat has been one of the only real Danza Burrow players. A couple of other hunters will pull him out every now and then, but he has not necessarily been the favorite, whereas Panda's been playing him. And look!
Gore, we don't get a chance to breathe here in this one, and Cyclone Spin, it's all your fault. You get out again. But my goodness, you're leaving it really, really close to death. Sanford Soccer's here on the left side of the map. Instead, it's going to be a look at the red buff, maybe the purple buff here for the Jade Dragons. Aurora now is where the Jade Dragons turn their eyes. Taunt in from Panda Cat immediately into the stun. There's a lot of damage here, but Aurora has the leap out. This continued pressure from the Jade Dragons is going to open up the door to a red buff invade. Maybe a little bit more. Layers leaps away. The red buff invade goes well, and Hurrywind will pick it up.
I mean, exactly what you want if you're the Dragons in this kind of scenario. You're getting tons of pressure, which you go back, listen to the desk, that's great for them. The Titans theoretically will be able to stand toe-to-toe for the late game, but Bobby had highlighted, Inbound had said, you know what, ideally the Titans are getting themselves a nice early lead. And I think this is one of those moments that you're starting to feel it. I never think early lead and then, oh boy, we're against the Dragons tend to follow up with each other. So it is definitely going to be a difficult matter to tackle. But you also not only lose that red buff, the purple buff invade. Cyclone has spent more time, I want to say, backing to base, or at least under his tower, than he's gotten to spend in wave. And he hasn't lost too much farm from it. You're still on par with Panda Cat in terms of level. But that kind of thing does accrue if they can continue this amount of onslaught from the Dragons.
I think it's such a multifaceted game here. The desk laid out how much of this game is largely going to be centered around Huryu, and not only the healing, but some of the damage that Hell can provide. And we're going to see a little bit of it here as Paul being ganked by Sanford Soccer. What is the damage there? That is absurd, and Paul clearly did not expect it. Didn't even bother using the beads. And that is clean and easy from Sam. No wards on the right side. And the Erlong Shen already impacting 2 kills.
And you can see what Hurwin's able to do there. I mean, one of the things about Hell, the reason that she is maybe more pivotal into a late game character is not, oh, hey, she's, she doesn't do any damage or healing early on. It's, oh, she doesn't have a mana to be able to do it that much early on. She still hits hard, just showcased there by Hurry. But now Layers is looking to get a little proactive. This is what I want to see. The Titans, I mean, right now it feels like it has just been non-stop from the Dragons calling shots, making sure that the Titans are falling back and in an awkward position each and every time. I want to see Layers get active.
Doesn't it feel like that's the worst iteration of the Jade Dragons to play against the best if you're the Jade Dragons? When they're making plays like this, starting things up on the left side of the map, Panda Cat is going to get jumped on. 3-man taunt from Sanford Soccer. Is the damage there onto Aurora to at least pull 1 kill back? Layers has got something to say about a Polar Bear. Mike will rip Tide away. Neither Sam nor Mike healthy enough to go back in. There is a rotation from Hurrywin from the mid lane. But it looks like the Titans were able to get away with one.
I mean,
what a Riptide! Oh, and Sanford Soccer is right back in, and Polar Bear Mike makes the play, and the Tartarus Titans not able to get out full strength. Aurora ends up falling on the back end.
And they burned his ult as well, so not only did you get the kill onto Aurora, but he's going to be spending a lot of time worried about how long he's going to be able to have that immunity available to him. It's a weird fight at first for the Dragons anyway, though. Panda Cat had no mana there. Like, it's no worry or wonder that he dies because he had nothing to work with. He threw out 1 ability and then had nothing to follow up with Layers coming around the corner. Maybe the 2v2 goes the Dragons' way, but that 3v2 was a solid take for the Titans. But I want to say impressive just from the Dragons to be able to pull back what felt like it was a surefire win for the Titans. With an invade, they get the Harpy, they get the kill onto a carry. And it feels like it should all fall in their way, and now Panda Cat still ends up about a level, maybe half a level ahead of Cyclone Spin.
And you know what's so important, and the thought that I was having right before that fight broke out, is that this is the scariest, is probably the word I was looking for earlier on, the scariest type of Jade Dragons to play against, where they are, the Jade Dragons are proactive in every facet of the map except for maybe the right side right now, where Benji and Final K are just farming things up. And the Jade Dragons are the ones pushing the pressure, finding the invades, things like that. That's terrifying. And so it's important, Gore, I think, that we see more of what we just saw from the Titans, where the Titans are able to kind of punch back, because that's when you can kind of stagger out the Jade Dragons, when you're also being proactive.
I also think that the Titans, specifically because of the Osiris, and since it's Camazotz in the jungle, right, as time goes on, specifically next 6 to 10 minutes, right, in this mid-game portion, that's where I want to see them start to dictate the pace, because they've got an Osiris over there versus what's going to be a Sobek. Sobek, great for setup,
Early
great
Pestilence.
flux, not a whole ton of damage necessarily. I mean, you get a nice burst out of the ult, and he is capable of at least finding some kills or taking someone to have health, but for the most part, you're tossing them to Sam for damage, Hurry for damage, and then Panda Cat to really find a lot of these kills. I think with Sam already at 2-0-1, you know who they're banking on.
Yep.
But I think being able to leverage that early on, knowing that they just have setup from Fine OK as of right now, is something that Benji is going to be able to kind of lean his shoulder and lean all his weight into.
And Benji picks up an early Pestilence here, so that's going to find some impact, not only with Fine OK and his healing in lane specifically. Then you got to worry about Hurrywind. You got to worry about Polar Bear Mike. There's a lot of healing to look
The
at.
Erlong heal.
The Erlong
Yeah,
Shen
there's
right
so
off,
much.
the,
Oh my
off of
God.
the ton. Right, Panda Cat, I mean, a tiny amount with a starter item there, maybe depending on the way that Hunter build looks. There'll be some healing there as well. And then that becomes the conversation that we had earlier about how the game revolves around Hurrywind, but also just the healing in general. That's got to be the buzzword here for the Jade Dragons. The amount of healing that is built into this composition, itemization-wise, might be the most important thing for the Titans to build against.
Yeah, I mean, going like Hell Yamoja would alone be obnoxious to go against. There's already so much healing, but now it's actually Benji who's caught out, maybe showcasing some of the healing that Sam has.
Yeah, the heal off the ult is good for Sam, but the taunt to start it off is what Benji's worried about right now. Final K blinks forward, so does Sam for Soccer, and the CC on the back end is there, but Layer's here to save his solo laner's life, and for the time being, the Osiris will live on. Sam for Soccer waiting on those cooldowns to come back. The pin from range is good. And Sam for Soccer for 3 in the Jade Dragons. The jungler specifically off to a hot start.
I mean, exactly what at least I kind of expected out of the Dragons, although not at this level and not this quickly. I mean, they are a team, every interview we've had with them up to this point has been talking about the fact that, you know what, regular season, we're not going to stress out about this game, we're going to take it easy, we're going to relax, and then when playoffs comes around, we'll match that. And everyone in the back of their mind was like, okay, but like, will you? Like, are you sure? Are you going to step up when you need to? Obviously, Sam is. I mean, 3-0-1, this Erlong has been fitting like a glove in the jungle. And it's night and day. Layers has been a really, really big purveyor for the Titans in this early game over their last few sets. Obviously, not the last one versus the Dragons, but prior to that. And they've slowed that down.
Cyclone Spin has used his ult on Panda Cat here. That's an important hammer to dodge. But the rocket right back in will deliver pain to Aurora's doorstep. And who else is here but Sam for Soccer, making it happen all over the map. Doesn't have his ultimate just yet, but Aurora's got no chance anyway. Layers is rotating in, but so is Hurrywind. This is a winning fight for the time being for the Jade Dragons, and Hurrywind might be able to get the solo. We'll back off instead.
Hurry on his own is enough to make Layers second guess trying to get this gank. I mean, you're jumping into what would have been a 2v4. Hurry takes about half of Layers' health just in the process. I mean, this is a great amount of control for the Dragons. And the Titans are in an awkward position where most of what you have to do right now is sit back and farm. As time goes on, you still got Tiamat. You've still got Tiamat minions. Benji hasn't been a huge part of these fights yet. A lot for them to try and pivot for these mid-game and late-game fights, but until they do that, the Dragons are absolutely guiding this ship.
That is like play number 1 in the Jade Dragons playbook. Let's make a kill or something happen on the left side of the map, and then immediately go over to Gold Fury and widen up the gold gap that's already started to build up. 3,000 gold, 10 minutes in. Now, the Des talked about this, and we've mentioned plenty how Hurrywind and the healing of the Jade Dragons is going to be important in the fast-paced games that they like to play. But then the desk mentioned the scaling that the Tartarus Titans have. You've got a Tiamat that'll be good in the late game. Can you get there, though, with the amount of pressure that's been put on Paul? Cyclone Spin finds himself a level behind this. Izanami is going to be great in the late game. There's got to be a little pressure here, Gore, you think, for the Jade Dragons to not let it get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, they're in this position where if they maintain this pace, they're not worried about that point. They're winning before that point, right? Before any sort of tipping point happens for the Titans. The problem is that as of right now, you have to look at where the catch-up is, and I mainly am going to keep glancing in the jungle and in mid, because despite how well things have been going, they're pretty much equal. I mean, we just saw Sam tick over to 11, Layers is at 10, and we actually just saw Paul go up over Heroin here, now hitting 12. So a little bit of experience difference that might end up playing a heavy hand for the Titans. If they can just stagnate the bleeding, I guess cauterize the wound here, then ultimately the Dragons' lead, while nice and comfortable, won't be as massive as it needs to be to get them a guaranteed win.
Could this be painful for Panda Cat, who does not have his ultimate? I was thinking maybe as Layers had made his way to the left side of the map. Polar Bear Mike maybe giving some chase.
What a
the Riptides have been great so far this game. Sam for Soccer did not have his ultimate. Layers did. It's about out of hell used. But now Sam has the opportunity to rotate here to the left side of the map. That ultimate very close to coming on back. Panda Cat will send some auto attacks, Aurora and Cyclone Spin's way, but it's just the purple buff right now that the Jade Dragons are worried about. But Panda Cat not worried enough about the damage that Cyclone Spin's got. And the Tartarus Titans get back a free one.
And now having to use the River's Rebuke for a disengage, I mean, that is a great fight for the Titans. Again, seems very small, but you get a good counter kill. Cyclone Spin was behind. You might even get Mike.
Mike needs the Riptide to survive. And will he survive is the big question. We'll take a quick pause here in game number 1. Look, we've seen a couple punchbacks from the Tartarus Titans, but if you're zooming out of this game in general, it's the Jade Dragons that at times have been missing in the last couple of weeks from the SPL that have shown up at least in game 1 here in the playoffs.
I mean, it is exactly the way you would expect. It's similar to what they did in Phase 1, where it's just like, hey, didn't really look great. They were still looking solid, I will say, during Phase 1. And then playoffs show up, and the Dragons are right there with it. I will say, though, that last fight might lose Panda Cat, might lose Mike.
Yep.
They were chasing down Paul separately in a completely other engagement. And so if you're making trades like this, that's where things get a little more convoluted. Late game, you've got all this wild healing, you've got good damage. But they've got the Tiamat minions, they've got good damage as well, and they scale well. I think having a warrior really helps favor the Titans as it goes into that late game. But you're also in this awkward position where it's, like you said, 3,000 gold, 10 minutes in. The Dragons are really driving that force. They get the Pyromancer. They got themselves a Gold Fury. There's no neutral objectives after this fight, if the Titans even win it, to go for. And so you're still in this limbo of like, okay, cool. That's a great fight to win. Do it again, though, please?
Right, you're not at a point yet where the Jade Dragons have run away with this game. The Tartarus Titans, if they're able to capitalize on this fight, can keep themselves. I know those are important storylines to follow along with as the game goes on. Appreciate the patience, everyone, as we take a quick pause here in Game 1 before we get right back in to the action. I think a big storyline, not only throughout this set, but through the playoffs, should the Jade Dragons win this game, is Sam for Soccer and his ability to continually impact these games. I don't think it's an overstatement to say Sam has not played his best Smite in recent weeks. The Jade Dragons have struggled. Sam, I think, independently has also struggled. So starting off a playoff run, and the way Sam for Soccer has, win or lose here in Game 1, is great for the Jade Dragons.
I think it is just such a big showcase of all the problems maybe that the Dragons, well, quote-unquote problems that they've had. And like you said, a lot of it originates in the jungle. When you look at the teams right now that are maybe not doing as well, most of the ones towards the bottom of them, it's some conversation around the jungle, whether it's their jungler. For some of these teams, it's having to swap constantly between people who have been playing for them. I mean, the Titans being one of those teams. And so I think Sam has been in that conversation a little bit lately just because, like you said, end of Phase 2 wasn't necessarily having fantastic games. Not everybody on the Dragons was. And so it was kind of, okay, well, will you show up? Because right now you are one of the most important members, at least for this early game oriented portion, to drive this team forward. So far, yes. Give them the Erlong. I'll wholeheartedly endorse it because this looks amazing.
Yeah, the Erlong Shens looked great. I think the flip side, you have to look at Layers as well. And Layers is a very confident dude. This Titans team has looked great since Layers has played a couple sets with them, and Sino was in there for a little while. They ended up going with Layers. You have to imagine that there's a little pressure for Layers. I mean, this is probably one of the bigger weekends that he's had, for a guy who's played a lot of championship events. It's going to be an important weekend for him in the same way that it's an important weekend for Paul as well, who, as we get back into the game, received a little bit of pressure from the Dragons, but it looks like the Tiamat will be just fine.
Well, now, actually, Aurora, you have to look at Layers. Layers has no mana, and they're a little bit deep with the conversion here. Heroin making a great cutoff route. They might be able to get a kill.
How much mana does Hurrywind have? Enough, probably, for a little damage onto Aurora. A little bit of it connects, and the stun from Mike won't even matter because Sanford Soccer's got the last bit of damage. 402 on the Erlang Shen, all 6 kills affected by the jungle of the Dragons.
I mean, that is pretty much exactly how you would want this game to go. Remember, Aurora Layers, the reason they are so aggressive there, they were about to kill Mike, or at least trying to kill Mike. They did kill Panda Cat, and it didn't seem to get him very far. That's a good turnaround kill, but it is one of those things worth noting. I always like to point it out when this has happened. Half the kills are onto Aurora alone, and Aurora, he's 2 levels down. That's going to affect him at level 12. It's going to affect him at level 17 for the starter item upgrade at 17, but also level 12 getting that second relic. As of right now, it's not the end of the world. You're still going to be tanky. I say that immediately after he bought a Divine Ruin, so that's going to slow down the tankiness a little bit. And I think if you're behind, this honestly might end up helping the Dragons a little bit more, at least in killing Aurora off. But it will help out the Titans because you know he's going to be in the front, and you know his ult is nice and big, so he has a lot of capability of spreading that Divine Ruin around.
And it's important that that's another data point in the important conversation of anti-heal that we had earlier. Pestilence for Benji has already been discussed. Brawler's Beat Stick for Layers is the next item. Now Divine Ruin for Aurora. Paul at some point might build into that, but maybe Aurora building that and then potentially an Ankh or something at level 12 will open the door or keep things a little bit more open for Paul and Cyclone Spin and what they're able to build here. Sanford Soccer is playing with house money, so why not send a little bit of a bet Cyclone Spin's way? Aegis, yeah, what's it going to buy you but time? And time has run out on Cyclone Spin's life. Finally, the Izanami's been locked down after being taken low a whole bunch of times, and who's at the forefront core but Sanford Soccer?
And what was it you said last time? A key Dragons play? Hey, when are we going to look for that kill? Right around the time of Fury is maybe, say, respawning? I mean, Primal Fury is just around the corner, and you're potentially getting a Tier 1 tower over here. You just killed off their carry. He's gone for another 20 seconds. I mean, Layers has had to sit back and watch and can't really get engaged the same way that Sam has been so far.
Kill on the left side of the map. Check. Fury has respawned. Check. Let's go for the Fury. Check. Now we got to secure the Fury because Aurora is here, but Aurora won't get the chance. Hurrywind just needs to survive in this moment. Your team has gotten a kill, but can you do one better? Layers nearly goes down after a excited attempt at a Tier 1 tower dives. Fino K is blinked forward. It's a dash away from Layers, and Fino K, maybe he doesn't have the legs to continue to chase this one. So Layers will survive. Hurrywind did what he needed to do. The Jade Dragons did what they needed to do around the Fury, and the gold lead is now widened, and it's an FG call.
I was going to say a win for Layers because he got the Aegis off Heroin, but that has completely collapsed in on itself. Aurora and Benji are still right here, though. The Dragons have to be careful.
Frenzy for Polar Bear Mike. Benji over the wall will not matter. Jade Dragons have taken down a 15-minute and 40-second Fire Giant, and the Tartarus Titans are reeling, and why not another Riptide for Polar Bear Mike? Benji will not survive, and the Jade Dragons have widened that lead even further.
But I like the way the rest of the team, look, they just got Fire Giant. You're not winning this fight. You have to get something on the map elsewhere. Where does Paul go? Gets a Tier 1 in mid. What does Cyclone do? He gets a Tier 1 in left, puts some pressure on the Tier 2. They're going to lose this Tier 2 no matter what in right. It's going to be about potentially Phoenix defenses. I mean, look how slow it is to kill this Titan off for the Dragons. I don't know that they have Phoenix Siege potential right now. I think they need a little bit more items, which admittedly they have some gold in their pockets, so they are going to be able to spend a lot of that. What was that, almost 2,000 for pretty much a lot of them. They're going to be able to back. They're going to come back a little bit stronger. This Pyromancer's just going to really enhance that. And so now I think we're looking at least a Tier 2 and a fight around a Phoenix, but things get much more, I don't even know if I want to say difficult. You've got a Sobek to pull them out. You've got a Hell to keep you healed up. It's definitely going to be a lot of work because you're only 17 minutes into the game.
Yep.
But they seem to be just fine to put that work on their shoulders.
There's a lot of time here for the Jade Dragons to knock down both of these Tier 2s, Gore. You wonder then if the confidence, you're talking about the defense or the ability for the Jade Dragons to siege. You wonder if we're starting to worry about a Phoenix Siege sub 20 minutes into this game and how that might look on defense for the Tartarus Titans. Big lead for the Dragons. You don't want to gamble it away necessarily because the scale potential of the Titans is there. So this is an important pivot point in this game where it's over or the Titans have a bit of a step back in.
And I think it's a big deal. This actually wasn't something I was expecting. The Jauger, I think this is a good pickup for them because look, again, where Cyclone and Benji are on a set path for split pushing as of right now and trying to pick up some towers to counteract what the Dragons are picking up. It's not going to completely balance out because it's tier 1 for tier 2, but at the end of the day, it helps slow down a split push potential, and you have to watch now how much faster this tower is falling than the one on right. Yep. 2 Chin size picked up. Sam and Panda just got it. They're absolutely going to be able to threaten this Phoenix.
Sam ideally is using that chin size to whittle down the health bar of somebody in the back line. Panicat, of course, can send some of that damage towards the Phoenix. We're not worried about the tier 2 and mid, say the Jade Dragons. We want to end this game quickly. Frenzy from Polar Bear Mike starts this one off as the Tartarus Titans get taunted on in by Sam for Soccer. Is the range damage there? Not just yet. A River's Rebuke from Mike will slow down the re-engage, but a pluck sets up a kill for Pandacat, and the Jade Dragons have whittled down the health on that Phoenix a little bit, but they've gotten an early kill.
And now they've got a minion wave with them. They're going to be able to re-aggress easily. Layers needs to get active. He's just been hanging out on the side.
That's a big blink in from Fine. Okay, bye-bye Birdie. And the left side Phoenix falls. Hurrywin taken low as well. Will Hurrywin go down? Yes. But Pandacat immediately answers back. Fine, okay, has gotten one as well. We are not 20 minutes into game number 1, and the Titan is a bit concerned. The health bar is not enough. With no healing from Hurrywin, Polar Bear Mike has got to carry a little extra weight in the healing department. Jade Dragon score, they're able to find a few kills, get a left side Phoenix.
Oh no.
Talking about setting up a win condition for the next Fire Giant that'll be up in a couple minutes.
And what a terrible time for the Titans jungle to be up for the Titans here. I mean, the green buff, red buff, all stripped away. The Scorpion as well, just stripped away on left. And they still have the Fire Giant buff for 30 seconds. They can get another 1,500 gold in this tier 2 tower in mid. I mean, the only thing that keeps this game alive is that kill onto Hurrywin as of right now. I think if he was back, that healing is still available. We're watching the Dragons having already killed the Titan at this point. I mean, it's 11,000 gold. The Dragons are in control. The good news is that they don't have the best secure in the world. The River's Rebuke makes things really difficult to re-engage. They've got good zone for the Dragons, as we saw in the last Fire Giant. But Benji was still around, Aurora was still around, and they were fighting a battle with nobody around them. I think the Titans do still have some presence to be able to showcase around some of these objectives. Granted, it feels like it's going to be a long shot, but they do have some good team fight capabilities still open to them.
This is a good opportunity for Aurora to walk forward, ward up some of this right side jungle, while the Jade Dragons are going to work down the left, and Oni Fury is here, Gore. So this is actually a perfect Fury spawn for the Jade Dragons. The Fire Giant is going to be up in what, 15, 20 seconds. You're going to have an Oni Fire Wave pushing out here shortly for the Jade Dragons. On the opposite side of the map, there are Tiamat minions on left, and that will slow down the push a little bit. But this is, I thought, an inflection point was that first FG for the Jade Dragons. Now it's the Titans who have to decide whether you're stepping up to this one 20 minutes into the game for the second FG. Because, Gore, this game might just be over if the Jade Dragons are able to get this one cleanly.
This Fire Giant's either a comma in the long sentence of this game, or it's the exclamation point for the Dragons to win it, right? They are either going to get this and they are going to end the game, or the Titans are going to have something to say about it. It's still difficult at this point, though. Upgraded Ankh from Aurora is the tilting factor to me. He finally hit that level 12, had it for the last fight, but now that it's upgraded, can really help her re-engage around this FG.
Tiamat minions doing their work on the left. Aurora gets plucked in, but is able to leap on out. Polar Bear Mike takes a stun here as a little bit of damage reaches its way into the front line of the Tartarus Titans, but fine, okay, somewhat low on HP as well, and that's maybe the biggest pushback we've seen from the Titans so far.
But you have to look at what they use. Paul did drop his ult. He's the only one that dropped his ult, but that means the Dragons still have all 5.
Oni Fire.
And it does make things a little more awkward. You highlighted, the Oni Fire minions, not just making it to the Phoenix, they're going to be in the Titan.
Fire Giant's half HP, so is Benji, who's been plucked into the backline.
What a wall!
Rebuke, but
what a passive!
Is up from Benji, but it won't matter. Polar Bear Mike, he's got the damage, and here come the Dragons. 2 down for the Tartarus Titans. Aurora has been left to the Wolves, and Pandacat will clean up all 3 for the Jade Dragons. Sam for Soccer dueling it out with Paul, and that's no big deal for Sam, who nearly gets taken down on the back end. And Gore, the Jade Dragons start off this set with an exclamation point.
And I love the way they make this call. And look at them. They are stopping for the right Phoenix. I thought they were just going to run through. Fine-OK seemed to have that note. He was just going to run in to the Titan. It's Layers versus the World, and trust me, the World wins this one 9 times out of 10, maybe even more than that. This was a clean game from start to finish from the Dragons, Dave. I mean, there's a good objective play, good kill focus. Every single target that they jumped into and jumped onto, they knew that they had a purpose for. They did it with neutral objectives in mind, made sure they cleaned them up. And they just, I mean, 10 minutes in, had a 3,000 gold lead, and then just now had like a 15,000 gold lead. They took a lead and drove with it.
And who's at the forefront of that? Sanford Soccer in game number 1. That is a trend that Jade Dragons needed. Trend not made after 1 game. Trend made after 2, maybe even 3 games here for the Jade Dragons. But what could be the start of a trend is very good for the Jade Dragons and Jade Dragons fans. The Tartarus Titans got to figure out that early game for a chance here in this set. Jade Dragons take game 1. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with game number 2.
I actually really love that clip. You can see him take in his breath after he survives.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. that was, I'm not talking to you, Jordan. You're like, yeah, dude. Jordan. I figured it's only fitting that I really hide Fortnite. Okay. Next up, I'll eat Mifflin. Focus, Mifflin. X-Caster and I was looking over there. I skipped the last line. Okay, right here. Jordan, this is the one. X-Caster and Bloodbath! 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 Bloodbath. Bogo Brain, Galaxy 5-Head Poggers, Keck W, Omega Pog, Pepe D plays here, alright? We're talking Poggers, Galaxy Brain moments, and that's when SMITE players have hard reads, big plays, and just kind of display the, I don't know, like high IQ. You'll see it. It makes sense once you watch it.
Welcome back, everybody. It seems like it is indeed playoff time based on how the Jade Dragons are playing, because that looked a lot to me like playoff Jade Dragons. They take the Game 1 victory with ease over the Tartarus Titans. And we're, of course, doing it on their sick Alienware PCs. You too can get your hands on the same gear the pros are using, sponsored by our title sponsor over at Alienware. Head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW in order to secure those best deals possible. And, of course, following Alienware on all their social medias at Alienware and joining their global community at AlienwareArena.com. Again, big thanks to Alienware for being our title sponsor of the SPL here in Season 8. Aggro still joined by Inbound and Taco to break down game number 1. And apparently it is that easy for the Jade Dragons. They don't have to care about the regular season because they're going to show up and dominate on playoff day, right, Bobby? That's all it is?
Yeah, that's all it is. Who needs the regular season? All you got to do is get top six, make it to the playoffs, and you're good for the Dragons.
And then you just turn on the Jets. And the Jets were turned on early in this game, in particular by Sam for Soccer, who had probably his best game of Phase 2, starting it off early with that first blood mid.
That was a fantastic performance through and through for Sam. And, yeah, that early first blood, I think, kind of dictated the entire pacing of this game, because we or at least I know I talked a lot on the pregame on how much impact the early game could be for the Tartarus Titans because they had so much outright burst damage, but none of that ever really becomes an issue when your Camazotz is dying at level 2 and it's the Erlong Shen who's collecting the first blood bounty. So immediately Hurrywin no longer under duress. He doesn't have anybody to pressure him because this Camazotz now just has to focus on recuperating farm, and when you have your mid jungle focus on recovery, well, that leaves your side lanes open to being punished.
And that's exactly what happened. Side lanes really got to do what they wanted. Panda Cat was very far ahead. Final K on the Sobek had 0 threat, was the highest level in the game for quite some time. And for the first time in what feels like a long time, I can say that a jungler was top player damage for a long time in this game. Sam was doing that much work on this Erlong Shen. 5-0-9, I mean, we were a little bit worried about that pick. We said it couldn't get behind. It didn't, and Sam was able to do that type of stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. In that 3v3, there is so much healing that if you can get that lead, you are nigh unstoppable. Nobody can really slow you down. Even a little bit of poke from that Tiamat is irrelevant. So Sam did exactly what he needed to do. He walked away with that first blood, and he got Hurry free farm in that early game, and Hurry ended up not being able to be killed either.
Yeah, overall, once Hurwin can't die, they're in trouble, right? And then it's going to be pretty difficult to lock down a hell from ahead. It seemed like the plan was we're going to give them one really good pick and get 2 really good ones on the back end. They got Tiamat and Osiris. Is it as simple as the Tiamat and Osiris were less valuable than the Emoja in that game?
I mean, the Emoja wasn't even the biggest problem. It was mostly just how they played that early game. Like Taco said, that level 2 is probably the most important play in the entire game. If it goes the other way and maybe, say, Lairs gets a kill there, the game is probably over in the other way. And I think it's just something that Lairs cannot be put into a position to die at that point. Hell's level 2 is too strong, Erlang's level 2 is too strong, and Tia's is pretty negligible. I think you just have to play safer there, wait for your time, wait for when you are strong, and then fight it.
I do think that something you and I were talking about, Bobby, right before we came on this death segment, is that Lairs' role on this team doesn't need to be the superstar. He doesn't need to carry this team. You've got Paul and Cyclone Spin as your backline, and Aurora and Benji as your front line. All you've got to do is do your job and make some space and make some plays for your backline to do it. Taco, I don't think Camazotz really is that pick. Camazotz is the I'm going to do it sort of pick.
That was definitely the all-star pick choice, was going for the Camazotz here, and it was kind of evident as well in the way that he played his positioning at level 2 when he first came into the mid lane, that he was maybe overestimating how much damage he was actually going to be able to exert there.
Yeah, it clearly did not end up working out for him in that situation, as we are on to picks and bans for game number 2. The Jade Dragons, I would call that a statement victory with how clear-cut it was, and in particular the way it went down, that every lane was ahead, and in particular Sam did a ton of work in that game. And when your jungler in this meta can be that impactful, because not many junglers are going to be that impactful, it's going to be hard to beat you. And the Titans putting some respect on Sam for Soccer's name right away, leading off with an Erlong Shen ban.
And I don't know if it was necessarily the God. I think it was more of just a mistake from the Titans with how they played against that Erlang. I think if he's Osiris there, Gilg there, the same thing is going to happen. I think it's more of a playstyle thing on the Titans than this Erlang ban. But maybe they thought it was a little bit different. Maybe the CC damaged a little bit too much for them.
No, Bobby, surely I didn't make a mistake. It was that he was Erlong, you know? Like, what am I supposed to do against that pick? Saving the excuses there maybe a little bit. But the Titans go back to this Artemis. This was banned by the Jade Dragons the last time around, but Jade was in the first pick position in that game. And despite the loss, Paul will not get his hands on Tiamat this time around.
No, it seems as though the Jade Dragons recognize that Tiamat definitely still a very strong mid lane factor. Don't really want to allow any sort of opportunities, I think, for a mid-late game takeover, because I think had it not been for the Hell, it would have maybe seemed a little bit closer in some instances, but the general rule of thumb whenever you're dealing with a healer composition is you never even want to be even. You need to always be ahead, otherwise you're in trouble. And for the Tartarus Titans, I think that this last ban is probably the more impactful one than the Erlong. It's taking out that Yemoja, taking away the capability there, I think, for Mike to be able to influence the dual lane as heavily as he did in Game 1.
Bobby, are you surprised the Titans banned Yemoja with their first pick?
I mean, it is slightly surprising. Maybe they're looking for a better, maybe one-for-one trade. Yemoja maybe is just something that they don't feel like they piloted as well. I still think it's surprising Yemoja gets through any games. I think that goddess should be just a permaban. She does way too much in entire portions of the game. Just minute 0 to minute 35. She's the most impactful god in the game, and I think we should probably not see her for the rest of this playoffs.
I've got a feeling we will, but I don't disagree with you. That's where we're at now. As the Dragons have a couple options. I mean, Osiris and Gilgamesh both open. Serket, Kabrak, and Cerberus, all three banned by the Titans last time. None banned this time. So a big pivot in terms of prioritization in their pick ban phase. And now Osiris open, but so are some other things here, Bobby.
I think the biggest thing you touched on was the Kabrakan. It was first banned by the Titans in the first game. So it's either high priority from this Jade Dragons team and something that maybe Final look to pick up early. It's also something that they could look to try to trade with. Maybe the Jades play it and the Titans don't. The Odin pick, though, obviously always a safe pick.
Yeah, and I think this gives you some insurance against Hell, right? That now the Dragons are disincentivized to pick that god, whereas it's still an option for the Titans.
Even Hell, Giannis, there's Morgan Le Fay. I think that those are three mages that we've definitely seen hurry pilot in the past, and all three of them can definitely have some struggles when trying to deal with the Odin. And the Odin as well, kind of like an Osiris first pick, it's very vague. You don't actually know if it's intended for solo. There is some room, I think, for a flex pick opportunity here, but I like the response of the Jade Dragons to take away that Osiris. I do think that if they'd left it open, there would have been an opportunity potentially for the Titans to take it for jungle, so having that removed might make it a little bit easier as far as just trying to... It's seeming like the mentality for the Jade Dragons, they've been one of the few teams that will play into Odin and just go all damage to deal with it.
Hey, I mean, I said they're discouraged from picking the Hell, but I didn't say they weren't allowed to, and the Jade Dragons decide that they will anyways. Hell up against Odin, tough, but more manageable than it used to be, right? At least you can break down those walls with some auto attacks. Maybe we see Fafnir, Izanami, Rom, gods that are really good at knocking off those pips of the Odin cage, something along those lines, but certainly a Phantom, I assume, in the works here for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, it does not feel good playing Hell into Odin without the Phantom. Even if you can kill the cage in most scenarios, just one cage late game where Hell can't get out of it quick enough and she's dead and the game's over. So I think you kind of need that Phantom.
It's Rom, the selection for Cyclone Spin this time. The Izanami got pretty far behind in Game 1, so they take a different selection for Cyclone Spin this time. And the Titans go Jade Dragon-esque with the Soul. I believe we saw Paul play it once or twice this phase, and I believe we laughed about Paul's build at some point because it was a little askew. And when I say we, I'm talking about me and the other Titans players during their media day, if I remember correctly. We're laughing a little bit about that build. So maybe he's learned his lesson in that regard. But Soul, this early, I mean, in what world do the Jade Dragons assume Paul is going back to Soul? Is this really what they needed in this spot?
Soul just introduces a lot of objective shred, especially when paired alongside of the ROM, and as far as finding follow-up damage for that Odin cage, it is a little bit easier, I think, for that Supernova to take up at least one segment of that cage. I wouldn't really depend too much on the ROM for anything other than, like, an Astral Barrage here and there, but I think mostly it's just the fact, too, that Soul introduces a lot of early game fight, and if we're going to see some level 2 action between these two teams in mid-jungle, then maybe it is a little bit more relevant for Paul to have a god that can actually box it out, as opposed to the Tiamat where, like Bobby said, you have to be a little bit more respective in terms of where your power spikes are at.
Bobby, your thoughts on this Soul pickup?
Yeah, really the only thing I can think of is they need this 2v2 to not be so bad that they just prioritize the Soul, because she does have a very good level 2. It's one of the few mages that can box up against that Hell and actually trade well with her. So yeah, I guess that's just what they're planning on picking out of the mid lane. It gives them a little bit of objective shred also, but definitely not what I was expecting from Paul.
Me either. And I'm a little surprised we don't see a Fafnir ban here yet from the Titans, though they do have the first pick coming out of this ban phase. I don't think you can afford to give Fafnir to this draft, because then you just start losing objectives. You already have an attack speed stim for the team with that Odin, something that we don't really talk about very much when it comes to that god, but he does give that AoE attack speed buff with that 3. You add in a Fafnir, I feel like your objectives are all in serious trouble. So I'd be very surprised if the Dragons weren't intending on picking Fafnir in this spot, that they didn't at least ban it. And they don't intend on picking it. It's Artio instead, bringing some flexibility to this draft, Bobby. We don't know where this Osiris or Artio are going yet.
Yeah, I guess it's just to keep that surprise factor up. There's Osiris can play multiple roles, Artio can play multiple roles. It's just, I guess, to get the counter pick or priority picks in multiple different roles. Yeah, the Fafnir hasn't been too prioritized today. It's been kind of picked towards the bottom or maybe banned in the second half, and we saw a lot of priority in that during the regular season.
Would you have liked Fafnir more than Khepri in this spot?
I think the Khepri's fine. Like you said, you have so much objective spread. What's the difference between killing it in 6 and 7 seconds? There's really no difference. But having that peel for the Khepri on the back end, or extra kill potential with Khepri's 2 and his pull 3 combo, I like the Khepri pick actually a lot.
Fair enough.
And the Ratatoskr kind of rounds it off a little bit better as well, because there is a lot of single target focus, at least from this Jade Dragons composition. Khepri definitely one of the better supports for kind of negating that, but more importantly, I think it's just the knockup feature from that through the Cosmos, something that is going to have not only that level 2 engagement with the Soul, but it's great setup for an Astral Barrage, it's great setup for that Stellar Burst Supernova combination, and it takes up a little bit of AoE as well, so you can have some further follow-up in terms of space control outside of just the Odin cage.
Ymir, last pick here for the Jade Dragons. Not what I was expecting, but they end up switching this Artio over to towards Final K, and then Sam on the Osiris. Mike, I assume that's where it's going. I mean, Ymir solo has been a thing in the past, but I can't imagine taking it out of Mike's hands in this type of draft. Very good if he's good on the walls, but this Khepri matchup is one that, Bobby, for me, I think that's a pretty volatile one. If you fall behind on the Ymir and you start getting ranged rooted, I'm like, what do you do against that?
Yeah, exactly like you said. It's volatile. Whoever is going to be getting this lead, or if neither of them are really engaging with each other, it really depends on which one is going to be more vulnerable against the enemy's, I guess, damage around them. And the Soul combo with Khepri 3 into Soul 2 ult, Rat getting onto the Ymir, Mike's going to have to play pretty safe because they can all in pretty easily.
Now, I think that another reason why Paul might have leaned more into this Soul as opposed to a different mage is just because he wanted that range introduction. Soul, I think, is one of the few mages that doesn't have to get within Hell's kill zone in order to clear the wave and to look for further poke damage. And the slow application, I think, is also relevant here. There's a lot of really nice slows for the Titans to utilize against the Ymir and the Artio, so it could be an instance. Well, it really just all depends on how that early game goes for the Titans, because, again, I think that they had a better early game in Game 1, but they were ripped apart because of that level 2.
I mean, Tiamat and Camazotz certainly much worse at level 2 than Soul Ratatoskr. So adjustments have been made by the Tartarus Titans. We'll see if it makes the difference. Game number 2, a bounce-back desire for the Titans. We'll see if they can make it happen. Dolson and Gore bringing you the action.
And the Tartarus Titans have drafted themselves something that can do it. Gore, I think our eyes immediately have to look to the jungle, because that's where everything started in Game 1. Sanford Soccer on the Erlang Shen in Game 1 found an easy kill, let's not mince words here, onto layers. In the game, effectively we would learn what was lost from that point on, because Sanford Soccer pushed that lead. Different look in the jungle this game. Something, I'm not going to say much more impactful, but with the potential of this Ratatosker, needs to be a big game from Layers.
I actually think it has a lot to say early on as well, and that's what I'm really looking forward to from Layers, because like you said, I mean, we got a ton of action in the first, 3 minutes? Despite there only being 1 kill that had happened, there was a ton. Speaking of which, hurry. Maybe playing the wrong game here. Gets it a little too close. But it was exactly this pace in game 1 too, right? Everybody seems to be getting low. There's pressure in the duo. There's pressure in mid. There's pressure everywhere. And yet there was still only 1 kill. I think that Layers is going to be able to impact this to either find kills in return or be the one finding that 1 kill if it stays around that same pace.
Here's the good news for Hurrywind. He's hell. So he is
full
back
health
to full health. Just a moment later. Paul doesn't have that same luxury. Hurrywind walked forward, tried to clear the wave. Paul took some damage, had to use all of his pots. So Paul has no more pots in that lane. So that actually could be something somewhat impactful.
Like you said, not just the pots, has mannequins as well. So he's gone for a different starter at the very beginning. And that, in and of itself, I mean, we haven't necessarily seen a lot of Vamp Shroud in the mid lane, but, like, you're not getting a lot of sustain, period, outside of what Soul has already. Her 1, relatively good at keeping you healthy, but not heavily leveled as of right now.
A little bit with the trinket,
So,
right?
yeah, it's probably going to be, with a little bit of lifesteal there. What, like 4%, I think, on the trinket?
Not a lot.
It's going to keep him okay for now, but any amount of pressure would definitely topple it. Luckily, he's against Osiris and Hell. He's not necessarily worried about these first 5 levels.
I was going to say, if that's an Erlang Shen...
Oh, yeah, I'm sweating, dude.
We're seeing a dive onto Paul. A blink pin knock-up, and Sanford Soccer's off to the races yet again. A lot of that pressure from Sam in Game 1 funneled to this left side of the map. Cyclone Spin only died once in that onslaught of a few minutes.
Wall.
Polar Bear Mike was making a lot of plays on that Yamoja, and the Ymir, I think, carries somewhat similar expectations for PBM. Paul has taken a lot of damage here, and Hurrywind, with his last bit of mana, sends some range damage Paul's way, and gourds another first blood for the Jade Dragons in the mid 2v2.
Maybe I gave him too much of a window. I said 2 to 3 levels. I wasn't necessarily worried about that for a little
You
bit.
meant 2 to 3
Apparently.
minutes.
Yeah, well, not even, right? 2 to 3 seconds? 2 to 3 skirmishes in this game. Yeah, Sam, I think it is a very important note to say that those slows are going to be very, very helpful. And already it's set up his team. He wasn't even over here on left, and yet they still are able to get aggressive onto a purple bomb.
That is I think, just such a surprise. It caught me off guard, admittedly, how much damage Hurrywind can do already with just a quick rotation of abilities there.
Yes.
I imagine that caught Paul off guard just a little bit. This game far from over. We're 3 minutes in. If Hurrywind on this hell does as well as he did in Game 1, I think you got to think about banning this out or picking it away. Paul is really good at hell. So if you have a run-back performance here from the Jade Dragons, and again, we're far away from that, but you're already at 1,000 gold in Game 2 for the Jade Dragons. Something you got to consider. Aurora gets slowed on down. Horrific Emblem used by Polar Bear Mike. The last bit of mana used to slow down Aurora, and there's a taunt back in from Panda Cat as well, and Sanford Soccer has rotated to the left side of the map. Easy as you like. And Sanford Soccer on this Osiris has showed no signs of slowing down.
You know, maybe it's just recency bias, but we spent so long talking about the Titans and the jungle specifically. Actually, speaking of which, Layers is up.
Can the stun hit? Yes, it can onto both. Spin to win, baby. Layers answers back, and the Tartarus Titans at least
But he has no
able to
mana.
get 1 kill in return. You're right, Gore. On this Ratatosker. He'll pay the iron price for his kill, and Polar Bear Mike is the one in range to collect.
Sam has ult. I mean, they could theoretically... Look, PBM's low. PBM has no mana. But if they wanted to, they might have been able to stick it to Cyclone Spin as well, just to showcase what they have. And if that Disapparate isn't there, Hurrywind might be showing Paul, again, a little bit more of that hell damage. But, you know, recency bias... And notably, because Layers just gets a kill, that's where all of our mindset, at least my mindset, has been for the Titans, because that's what looked better. You pick up a jungler, all of a sudden everything's changed for them. They skyrocket in terms of their standings, at least in my mind, for Phase 2. But the Dragons haven't cared about Layers. I mean, they got that first blood in Game 1. So far this game, they've kind of pushed him out. They did just get that kill, which is very helpful for them. But admittedly, I think a lot of this pressure on Duo is what's kind of helping them out. Like, Aurora effectively couldn't do anything last game, and Cyclone Spin, I mean, even now has no mana to work with.
And even if Sanford Soccer isn't here, Polar Bear Mike's just walking for it. That's a one-man purple buff invade that kind of was a coin flip there. Polar Bear Mike had to get abducted by Aurora to make that one clean. Cyclone Spin able to get the purple buff at the end of the day, though. So, outside of a kill and a couple of assists here in the duo lane, it's not like the Tartarus Titans have fallen way behind. And we've seen now signs of life from layers on this Ratatosker, but now that we've hit that level 5 point, already seen the Rat ult used to get some pressure building for the Titans on the left. Now is where you need to see that a little bit more widespread around the map.
It's 2,000 gold. We're 5.5 minutes in. The Dragons, I mean, yeah, a bit of that is going to be your first blood bounty,
Even
I guess.
more,
A little
2.2.
bit that is going to be scooped up from a couple of those kills, but a lot of this has been the invades. You can really tell that the farm, 1,300 in their favor, that's where it's really starting to pay off. Ymir has about a level lead. You've got about a level there in solo and mid as well. So the Dragons are right now just focused on the map play a little bit better. And they're getting kills to boot, right? I mean, if you're getting invades that are clean, Mike didn't even get the last one, yet they still have been able to pull a lot of that into their favor.
And Gore, Greater Scorpion going down might be impactful for something I'll get into here in a minute. A 2v2 breaks out in left short device, does a whole lot of damage. And Panda Cat able to detonate that Scarab's Blessing. Sanford Soccer will blink on through, and the last bit of damage connects for the Jade Dragons jungler. Cyclone Spin, rather, sends some snipes on in. Can layers make a difference?
Well, he's going to come crashing down onto Sam, but there's 4 members of the Dragons here. What are you going to do against
Sanford
them?
Soccer's just going to walk on away. Lord of the Afterlife gets used, but that is an easy price to pay for the Jade Dragons. A clean, executed fight. And the Jade Dragons will find one. And what I was about to get at prior to that fight breaking out, the Greater Scorpion goes down, Gore. Now we can flip back to play number 1 in the Jade Dragons playbook. Gold Fury is up. We've gotten a kill on left. I don't know if they start it now because everyone's back up, but the threat of this early Gold Fury is looming, especially with the Stone Cutting Sword already in Ikavale for Panda Cat.
And this is one of those weird moments, but cooldown timers on ults is maybe the most crucial. And you have to think 3 for 3, but it looks like Mike was a little ahead of Aurora, so he's going to have his back a little sooner. Same thing for Panda Cat. And, of course, same thing there for Sam. He's going to have his back a little faster than layers. Those open up that opportunity for a Gold Fury a lot quicker for the Dragons. Granted, I mean, we're talking 20 seconds of a window, so it's maybe not even that big of a deal for them. They might be able to make something happen. They also might just do it the old-fashioned way and not care about their ults. Cyclone has done a great job of staying alive for the last few seconds, though. Still has his beats, has been hovering around no mana. Yeah, we'll back here. And I think that's actually the greatest fault of them is that they've just been so far pressured out in duo, they can't really fight.
The Tartarus Titans are fully alive here, though. Nobody's had to die yet for the Jade Dragons to take this one down. Instead, it's just good old-fashioned pressure for the Jade Dragons. And a nearly 8-minute Gold Fury goes to the Dragons. And that widens up this gold lead another few hundred. 3,000 gold, 8 minutes in. I guess it's more of a tree, Gore, a decision tree for the Jade Dragons when it comes to the early Gold Furies. A kill is not required, but pressure maybe is required, and that's what the Jade Dragons got. And they're able to capitalize.
It's deja vu at this point. I mean, when we hit the 10-minute mark,
we're
it was
about
about
to start saying the
3,000
same
gold.
stuff.
A lot of it is very similar. The kills are almost the exact same as well. It was, I think, 5-1 last time around when we started hammering the gold point home. And so they just need one more kill, ideally, to try and at least match themselves.
I'm sure they'll get it.
This is just where things get a little more tumultuous, again, for the Titans, because when you look at this comp, admittedly, layers should be maybe a little more active early on. That's what you think of when you think of Ratatosker. But I see Paul on the Soul, I see Cyclone on Rom, Aurora on Kepri, and then Benji's going to join the fights eventually. This team really, even though they're down 3,000 gold now, if they can, again, cut the bleeding, stem the bleeding, they'll be just fine to take some late-game fights.
Here's the bad news for Benji. He's a level behind. We'll see what happens here with Panda Cat as the rocket connects for a little damage onto Cyclone Spin, doing his best to dodge out the autos. He avoids a lot of damage. If Panda Cat had hit everything there, it's likely one dead Cyclone Spin. Is Panda Cat going in? No, he's not. Just back into lane. But Cyclone Spin has got to leave nonetheless. That sometimes indicates that the Jade Dragons are close by. It's not a purple buff invade on the back end of some pressure from Panda Cat. Instead, we're sending 3 on over to mid. The point I was going to get at about Benji, though, Benji's a level behind. There's been plenty of pressure building up for this RDO. And the Tier 1 tower has already gone in right.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is. I didn't even notice that. I was so used to that. Like,
Benji's been, again, 2 levels. Benji's been against that tower line since level, 3,
and this
feels like.
RDO has been oppressive, and when I look at a lot of, not just the disengages, you got a cripple field that's going to be very helpful, but getting into the backline, controlling the Titans, it's going to be easy.
That's a good wall from Mike to keep Aurora right where he is, but Aurora's able to dash on away. Paul has taken a lot of damage, but the Scarab's Blessing is there. Final K will heal on up. It's a tower shot connected onto the RDO. Benji drops the cage, but the Jade Dragons waltz on forward nonetheless. And the Tartarus Titans able to slow down the initial pressure from the Jade Dragons at least.
I mean, they dropped 4 ults there, and Sam had used his, and I think that's it overall. Like, I mean, not a really big fight for the Dragons. They weren't really concerned about
That's
it.
a Pyro. Yeah, page 2 of the playbook is the same thing as page 1, but replace Gold
Just
Fury with
on the other side of the
Pyromancer.
map.
Right. So Pyromancer will go to the Jade Dragons here. A potential for a blue buff invade was there if it were up, but Benji lucky in the fact that is not up and ready to be taken here just yet. This RDO, Gore, has just felt obnoxious to play against. Yarkor has looked amazing on this pick. Final K can't be all that far off, if far off at all, as far as playing RDO near the peak of her potential. It just got a little bit of everything, doesn't it? And especially in the hands of a very capable solo laner. The ability to not only control that lane, but then team fights later on is near some of the highest that I've seen here recently.
I mean, she's got, like you said, some, like, every form of CC that you would want in a fight. You've got a stun, a cripple, a root. Like, you've got healing for you and your team. Like, it feels like it's going to be pretty solid.
Stole that away.
And so far has been pretty solid.
Yep.
I think that's exactly what I expect to see from Fine. Okay, his rotations maybe a little bit more impactful than Benji's, depending on, one, what FineOK picks up for his second relic. He hasn't gone back and picked that up yet. And, of course, then Mike. Because a Phantom comes through, all of a sudden Benji, you know, single ult. Granted, it'll come up on cooldown way more often, so Benji will have opportunities for great cages.
Yep.
But you're going to have to hit them consistently. If they get 1 or 2 Phantoms, there's nothing to do.
Cyclone Spin's just got to choose who he dives to at this point, but he might not get much of a choice. Up into the sky, he'll go for his ultimate. Sanford Soccer has got the last bit of damage.
The mannequin.
And Cyclone Spin will make it 5-1 for the Jade Dragons. And Gore, there's a Fury coming up shortly. It's not ready to go just yet, but the Jade Dragons have that pressure, could invade purple here, but instead will take the Oracles before scattering on out into the rest of the jungle.
You know, in game 1, it was so well timed that the Fury spawned while Cyclone Spin was dead for 20 seconds. Now, they're changing the script a little bit. But this is just, look, this is clean. I think there's still a lot from the Titans for the late game. And I'm just kind of waiting to see if they can make it there. I mean, look, they're 5,000 gold down at this point, approaching 6,000 gold. If this Fury goes to the goes to the Dragons uncontested, it's just going to continue this steamroll. You've got a level for FineOK, almost a level there for Sam, just a little under. You got a level for Heroine. You've now got a level for Panda, and it was 2 levels for PBM. Might tick back up to that. I mean, they've just controlled this early game, no problem.
Primal Fury started but dropped by the Jade Dragons. Half HP. Signs of life is what we need to see for the Tartarus Titans. And at least showing some face is a good way to keep the Dragons from pushing this pace any faster. Something you have to avoid when the Dragons are playing the way that they are. But once both solo laners get to the left side of the map, something is brewing. And right now it could be a Gold Fury, or a Primal Fury rather, fight, or an engage on a Cyclone Spin. PandaCat did not have to, but chose to use the ultimate, so that's down for a little while.
And now it's going to allow the Dragons to aggress, but you know that's gone. A good wall from Mike, but I think the Titans can fight this.
If PandaCat is already here, his ultimate not horrible to have down. Can the Titans walk in? Can the Titans steal it away? No, they cannot. The Jade Dragons get the Fury, and it's an immediate disengage from both teams. No fight to be had, and that's a good call from the Jade Dragons to widen up this gold lead to 6.5K.
I mean, this is...
We were, 2 minutes away from a Fire Giant in game 1?
Yes, and so I will say it slowed down a little bit in terms of the I guess, overall map pressure. Not in terms of gold lead. It was much closer. We're still around 3,000 at this point. But you can see where the Dragons are still kind of dictating the pace of this game. Very similar to game number 1, except Sam doesn't have, like, 7 kills at this point. He's not a part... Actually, he is still a part of 100% of them. So they're really, really nailing the Titans down this time. I think remembering the last playoffs, not wanting to have to go to 5 games. Maybe remembering Sunday and thinking, well, we can play more serious than that.
There's something about this team, man.
It's a different game right now.
There's something about this Jade Dragons team. And still 1 game to go, no matter, or still at least 1 game to go, no matter what happens here in game 2. And it's trending to be similar to game 1. But I'll make the statement nonetheless. There's something about this Dragons team, when it comes to playoff time, they flip that switch. Look, they're a team that clearly gets frustrated for the right reasons when you lose in the regular season. But their minds get right when it comes playoff time, and the Titans just happen to be the team that collided with them in the first round.
And you know what? When you talk to them, and specifically I think we talked to them a lot early this year, but like Mike had even said what's the point of being number one all year if when you get to Worlds you lose it? And I think that's the mentality they've come into this year with, which go back and look at the way they play all last year. They are going to destroy you every set they play, or they're going to leave their just blood, sweat, and tears out on the play or on the field, whether or not they win. And then they get to Worlds and they lose.
Yep.
They win both playoffs last year, and they get to Worlds and they lose. Why win the regular season? Why win and focus so hard when you can do this at playoffs?
Paul's got no mana, but he's got beads and Aegis. Layers has got his ult. And so Paul will survive, Layers will survive, but the Jade Dragons pushing this lead on the left side of the jungle. The Tartarus Titans, a very capable team. As much praise as we are heaping on the Jade Dragons, we have to give some to the Titans, because this is a team that started to turn things around as of late. So, if there's a team that I think, Gore, could turn things around, whether it's on the back half of Game 2 or further on into this set, maybe push us to a Game 4, push us on to a Game 5, could be the Titans.
And it's worth noting, right? I'm going to highlight all of this. 7,000 gold, 16 minutes in. That's typically what you're supposed to do. I'm sorry I'm taking that from you. Because
please do.
Really does lean into this, which is the fact that, depending on how this Layers kill could potentially go...
It's a stun, maybe from Sam for soccer.
He's so low!
Nearly got taken down by Mike over the wall. Benji had to use the cage here. Paul's rotating into this fight. Does not have the ultimate, but Polar Bear Mike might be the sacrifice here. Shards of Ice and then a double freeze. Is that going to buy time for the Jade Dragons to get in? No, it's not. They've called off the dogs. And the Jade Dragons will at least get Pyro in exchange for their support.
Again, so 7,000 gold at this point. Now, though, down one Mike. That's a good kill to pick up if you're Titans. This is where things are a little more precarious to me, because if you're looking at the Titans, again, I like this draft now. Like, this is where they're going to start getting powered up. Granted, they're still a little behind. The gold is definitely going to be felt, but they're going to start hitting a lot of their power spikes. You've got two great, maybe three great siegers when it comes down to killing Titans and Phoenixes and towers. And so I'm really looking forward to this game, because the pace of it, despite the fact that the Dragons have gotten such a ridiculous gold lead early on, is not one that counts them out. They are going to be fighting from behind. There's no doubt about that. But they're more than capable of doing so. In fact, if the Dragons don't start getting themselves maybe more of a lead, controlling more of the map, getting more pressure,
sure,
I think the Titans are going to be not just in this, but they might be able to start contending in the next few minutes.
Well, that's a conversation we had in Game 1 as well about the Titans draft, where you hang around until the 25, 30-minute mark. When things kind of start to even back out, the Titans will have a composition that can fight back into the Jade Dragons. That's a very real concern. Not that the Jade Dragons are playing with much concern right now, but if this game goes another 15 minutes, then it's something where the Tartarus Titans are feeling maybe more comfortable with their chances. A 4-man rotation from the Titans on right. If the Jade Dragons loop in behind here, could be a good fight that catches the Tartarus Titans off guard. Gold Fury is about to spawn, though. You have to be careful. This Titans team, despite being pretty far behind, could sneak away an FG if they were feeling gutsy enough to make that call. The wraparound is occurring. PBM leading the charge. Hurrywind in behind alongside Panicat. Both carries will make their way on in. Cyclone Spin rolls away. Aurora's going to eat this rocket. A Scarab's Blessing might have to get used for himself. What's Layers going to do here? You're going to find the carries. You're going to find the targets. He's found Panicat in the back. The snipes from Cyclone Spin have gotten a little damage, but Benji's going to be the one to get the kill to trade things back here. Fine, okay, controlling the back line of this fight, but Cyclone Spin, he's got plenty of health, but it's being turned around, and Polar Bear Mike answers.
And they're going to keep getting aggressive, but they've got some great kills.
Oh, big freeze from PBM, and the chase goes on. Paul disapparates right on out. Could there be a slow? Of course there is. It's PBM. He'll hit those. Hurrywind's got the rest of the damage onto Paul. The Jade Dragons lose a couple, but they answer back with 3.
You lost Panicat, though. Fire Giant probably dashed. The tower maybe dashed, but they don't seem to care about those. They're getting aggressive. They're looking for more blood.
Why wouldn't you? When Hurrywind's full HP,
oh my God,
he's got the ability to put Benji down. Hurrywind on a killing spree, and the Jade Dragons get all but a roar.
I mean, they're just running at them at that point. I would argue the great thing for the Titans is because they kill off Panicat and Sam, they slow that game down. You get those 4 kills and you have either of those members up, that Fire Giant's gone, and they're more than happy to kite the last 2 or 3 seconds while those respawns come through. Now, you have to play patiently. Fury's available. You had highlighted that before, so that's maybe the easiest target on the map to just run to. Plus, look at all of their jungle is up. I mean, this is a great back for the Dragons. You get to spend some of that gold that you just got from the fight. And you come out of it,
careful, Titans.
Maybe a little bit worse for where you don't have a lot of relics.
Careful, Layers and Aurora starting up the Fury. Maybe seeing
There's a
how
good
fast
wall.
the Jade Dragons were going to be on the answer, but now without Scarab's Blessing, Aurora maybe in some trouble, but he'll dash on away. So the Jade Dragons will pick up the Gold Fury where the Tartarus Titans left it off. On the back end, though, if Mike is able to find some lockdown, maybe things get interesting, but they won't. And Gore, I think in a moment like this where we finally get a chance to catch our breath, you got to zoom out a little bit. Game 1 was all about Sanford Soccer, still was throughout the early part of this game. PBM, I don't think we gave enough love to on that Yamoja, and this Ymir as well here in Game 2.
Oh, yeah.
Looking immaculate. Chef's kiss for PBM on this Ymir.
I was going to highlight his relics, but they're both back up. They're going to have plenty of effect in this fight.
A double root, though, from Aurora keeps things interesting
Layers?
here. Layers has the ability to knock down some of the
Snipes?
health. Look at the snipes from Cyclone Spin. They've caught the perfect target. Hurrywind, the first sacrifice from the Jade Dragons. Panda Cat in with the rocket, though, could catch out Benji, who gets stunned on up. The auto's got a hit on the right, but there's a stun there. Benji lives, and the Scarab's Blessing will get proc. The Tartarus Titans, they strike some pay dirt here in Game 2.
I mean, this is exactly what you need. You've got the carries, you've got the damage, and you've got, finally, Aurora hitting somebody that's not him with his ult, although in the last fight, still helped prolong that. And that is the
Right to the
reason
FG.
you needed to rush this game. You needed your control, a 7,000 gold lead that's still in your favor if you're the Dragons, to turn into something.
What can Fino-K do here? Not much. If he ends up dying off, both carries still back on the FG. A stun from Benji will set up the D side. The Tartarus Titans on the brink have turned the game around. They'll be in the pit as far as the gold differential goes. But they're in the Fire Giant pit, getting the buff for 4 out of 5.
I mean, you had such a wild amount of control here if you were the Dragons, but never enough to turn it into something as substantial in the map as they did in game number 1. Now, around the same point where they were starting to knock down the Phoenixes, go into the Titan room even, they are having to play patiently, and they're going to have to sit back. I see Paul, I see Cyclone Spin, both with a Fire Giant. I see 3 Tier 2s and a Tier 1 that are about to stop existing, and that gold lead is going to disappear instantly. In fact, I think it's going to switch over to the Titans as long as they can continue this pace.
Yeah, the good news is about, I guess, losing all of your Tier 1 towers early is that, well, there's only 1 tier tower left for the Jade Dragons, is that you can get some of that free gold when the first Fire Giant of the game goes your way. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I say the Tartarus Titans are a very capable team of turning around a game like this. And they've done so, Gore. And the ability, as you mentioned, to flip this gold lead back in their favor is right in their hands here. Cyclone Spin pivotal, I think, in that last fight.
Crucial.
Those snipes killing off Hurrywind the moment the fight started, I think is where that snowball starts to build up some steam downhill.
And it was the perfect timing. They were still waiting for the Aegis, the beads to come up. They didn't have any of the relics for Panda Cat or Hurry. And so like it was just like the perfect storm for the Titans to be able to win it. And now, not only are they in a good position, they could potentially win the game if they barrel down this fight well enough.
Jade Dragons might put up a soft defense here. Despite FG, the Jade Dragons still 3,000 gold in the lead. So you might scrap back any sort of control that you've got here if you're the Jade Dragons. Mike will throw up his wall for a rare bit of damage blocking instead of engaging. All this damage connecting, though, from the Tartarus Titans means the Jade Dragons will turn tail and head on back. You've got 2 minutes left on the FG push if you're the Tartarus Titans, and you've got 2 Tier 2 towers to take down as well. At this point in the game, Gore, then you start to look again at anti-heal and that conversation around Hurrywind, because this is usually where there's enough of it to kind of limit what Hurrywind is going to be able to do, and then, of course, Fino-K as well. Layers has got the Brawler's Beat Stick. There's an upgraded Cursed Ankh in there for Aurora, so maybe less than what we saw in Game 1, but still enough to make a difference. Down 1 Yamoja, right? You know, Yamoja was a big piece of that healing puzzle in Game 1 that's not here in Game 2.
And it's because you get Benji's ult as well, right? Like, you have so much lockdown for this hell that you're not really as stressed about it, at least overall. You're not going to force Paul or force Benji to go into items that maybe would be better off somewhere else in order to get the power. But this is actually something that's really big to me from the Dragons. They did this on left, and they're doing it here in mid. They're not trying to save this Tier 2. It's going to be gone. There's a whole team with Fire Giant on the other side. You're not saving the Tier 2.
Waste time.
But you are burning the clock, exactly. There's only a minute left now for this Fire Giant, and the Titans aren't really any closer to getting a Phoenix. This is a great play from the Dragons to slow them down and make them pump the brakes. But
Could
it is
be
worth noting
more.
that the gold is now equal.
Is it more, though, from the Jade Dragons than just pumping the brakes? The wall from Polar Bear Mike
Layers
separates
up.
out this fight. Layers has got a lot of damage in that
Hurry.
build. It's the same play. Run on back. The Tartarus Titans gun down Hurrywin for the first kill of this team fight. Panicat, the next to go down as well. Final K was the last alive last time, but he'll be the third to die this time around. The Tartarus Titans execute the same play twice. And Gore, you could be looking at a Phoenix maybe the game.
I mean, yeah, they've got 40 seconds with most of the carries dead. Sam and Mike versus the world. Look, a good freeze and a good Osiris can do a lot, but kill 5 members, that's a tall order.
The Tartarus Titans have come to play, and now the Jade Dragons are going to have to make a miracle happen in game 1. Cyclone Spin gets taken low, but he's got Scarab's Blessing, and it won't matter. Sanford Soccer is the last alive for the Jade Dragons. Deicide, game 2 to the Titans.
I mean, they just, look, you're messing around with the team. There's a 7,000 gold lead at one point for the Dragons. They're up 5-1 in the kills. They're controlling every neutral objective. And yet, all you needed if you were the Titans, and it's exactly what you got, was a little bit of time. You just had to wait. And I had mentioned it, I think 10 minutes in, I said, like, I'm just waiting to see if they can make it to the late game. And the Dragons, following a similar pace to Game 1, cut off around 15 minutes. When we saw the Fire Giant in Game 1, didn't happen in Game 2, and everything seemed to kind of stagnate from there. And nothing that they did after that point got them the same amount of leads, the same amount of control as they had in Game 1. And the Titans just got to play the waiting game, and then late game carries just come online.
Exactly, late game carries. And the desk highlighted this. I think the fact that Soul could deal that damage from a range, and that Cyclone Spin could effectively one-tap Hurrywin by the end of the game there. You drop an Odin Cage, Phantom or not, it's going to take a little bit of time to get out of that. You drop the ultimate if you're Paul there in the mid lane. You drop the ultimate if you're Cyclone Spin. Suddenly Hurrywin's just out of the fight in back-to-back team fights. And that's all it took for the Tartarus Titans to even up this set. We will go to Game 3 tied up. But you got to take a break just before that. We'll see you right after this.
I gave up dabbing for Lynn.
Cool. No more dabbing for Final. He looked at me and said, I'm going to be on that stage next year. I'm going to become a world champion.
Welcome back, SMITE fans. And if you only saw the first portion of that game, you'd be thinking about how we're talking about a Jade Dragons 2-0 victory, but that didn't happen. In fact, it was the Tartarus Titans who were down by an exorbitant amount of gold through the first part of the game, who won 2 fights and have won Game 2 because of it. Before we break it down a little bit more, of course, got to give a quick shout-out to Insight Apparel, our official apparel sponsor here for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. Head on over to shop.smiteproleague.com to grab merch from your favorite teams or just general SPL merchandise. Again, Insight Apparel, shop.smiteproleague.com. Agro, Inbound, and Taco here for talk about Game 2. And like I said, I mean, the Titans won 2 fights that game. One by fire and one outside the Phoenixes. And all of a sudden, they won a game that looked like it was lost.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, can you kill the Hell before she does Hell things? And like Taco said before, if you kill that Hell when she doesn't have actives, or if you try to, it's the easiest when she doesn't have actives, which happened in that first fight. And then the second fight, they're just too far split from the rest of the team that Hell just dies before anything else can happen.
Yeah, that Fire Giant fight was a huge turnaround momentum swing there for the Tartarus Titans, because the early game, again, kind of dictated by some early flaws out of the Tartarus Titans positioning. Paul gets caught out a little bit too far up in mid lane and immediately looking at hurry win. Hell, first blood. You think that it's over from that point on if you base it off how game 1 went, but carries not having relics, trying to pull this Fire Giant objective, and it was just punish and a great team fight that essentially was capitalized on by the Tartarus Titans.
And then caught outside their Phoenixes here on this fight for, I'm not really sure what reason that they're there instead of sitting on the Phoenixes. I mean, this is, when the Jade Dragons have lost in playoff events at things like the World Championships, it's games a lot like this the majority of the time, right, where they are dominant. I mean, they were up 5,000 gold at like 11 minutes. That doesn't happen. And then to lose a game like that when you've got a Hell composition, nearly unheard of. Very surprised to see that game go this way, but got to give credit where it's due to the Tartarus Titans sticking in it and waiting to make a punish and hoping that, you know, when you're at that point, you know that the enemy team has to make a mistake. But the Jade Dragons made a mistake, and then it's saying something to be there to punish it. Bobby, that's something that your team is known pretty well for doing is don't give me that look. Yeah, you fall behind every once in a while, but you're resilient, you know? You're coming back.
You're pointing out you're behind every game.
Well, no, I mean, not necessarily that, but what kind of goes into a comeback of this type of magnitude?
I mean, it's just looking to take fights that are guaranteed or near guaranteed, splitting the map, because when you are down across the map, a 5v5 or a 3v3 isn't what you want to take. You need to take a 3v2, 4v3, 2v1, something where you have an advantage and the fight is almost guaranteed. And then from there, you just slowly start pushing where you can fight like more. Like maybe you rotate to solo, your jungle mid, so you have an advantageous fight there. But you just got to look to take those fights where you know or think you know you can win.
And now on the other side of the coin, you're the Jade Dragons. You had a really big lead. You throw it away. How do they bounce back, and what's it like in that comms right now for that team?
I mean, I think it's just you kind of wiped down off because they were stomping, and then they took one fight with relics down, lost that fight, and then they got caught just like kind of sleeping, thinking they're not going to fight for a little bit again, we're fine. So it's mostly just getting your mental back into the game, get ready for this Game 3, know that at least you should know that you are still the better team. You can still win this Game 3 pretty easily as long as you just play your game.
One thing also is the fact that even though the Tartarus Titans were able to turn this one around, it really did depend on the Jade Dragons making a mistake. And how often you're going to come by Jade Dragons' mistakes is really incredibly rare as far as the Pro League is concerned, especially playoffs at that. So if anything, that should honestly influence the Tartarus Titans to maybe take a deeper look into this Hell for the Jade Dragons, because despite the fact that they might have lost game 2 with it, it's cutting it a little bit too close for comfort if I'm the Tartarus Titans here.
I mean, that's back-to-back games where someone dies in mid for the Tartarus Titans at level 2 or 3. This time it was Paul. Last game it was Layers. That is not a winning formula, is the way that I'll put that, is to continue to have those types of struggles. So maybe we see them draft a little bit more for that 2v2. I mean, Paul's Hell did a lot of damage in the late game. The build, still not my favorite, but it won, so I'm not allowed to criticize it. That's how it works.
Yeah, the Paul Soul build, it just had, like, the spikes were not good enough, I think. That Bancroft spike isn't as good as you think it would be for the early game. You're better off going like a Magus, something that actually feels good early. You also had no anti-heal. But I mean, yeah, like you said, it won, so it's got to be at least a good build, right?
Yeah, got to be. That's how it works. Let's see what happens now in Game 3, picks and bans. We are knotted up at 1 apiece. The Tartarus Titans back in first pick position, and that's noteworthy because the Jade Dragons won their game in first pick, and after losing have chosen to go back to that second pick position. This is where a lot less power was on the board, so to speak. Remember, the Titans had some pretty off-kilter bans whenever they were in the second pick position, but this time, this is crazy, right? They ban Cabrakan first overall, game 1, lose. Game 2, they win, don't ban Cabrakan until the second phase, and now in Cabrakan not picked, of course, as we saw, and now they go, oh, yeah, we better ban that Cabrakan still. Yeah,
Titans,
why?
Titans are just really trying to look out, I think, for the stuff that Cabrakan can limit. And as far as their god pick choices are concerned, they have been running some gods that I think could be opposed pretty heavily by this Cabrakan. And it's also just one of those instances where I think it does kind of free up the pick bans as well, just in terms of if you're going to be in this first pick position, well, now the Jade Dragons have to make an even bigger decision, I think, in terms of who they ban initially in comparison to the Titans, where because of that Cabrakan ban, I don't want to call it a throwaway ban by any means, but it's just something very strong is more likely to get let through if you're going to expend a ban onto a Cabrakan.
And Soul, which they just played, which the Jade Dragons clearly don't value that highly, gets banned away as well. The Titans are playing like 6D chess. I can't even comprehend where they're coming from.
The only thing I can think is that they're planning on picking this Hell very early.
Sure.
Because that Cabrakan plays very well into the Hell. They ban the Soul, which is something that matches Hell's pressure.
Yep.
There it is.
Pick Hell. Yamoja open, by the way. So they leave the Yamoja on the table. They leave Osiris on the table. Kind of as expected there, like I suppose. And give up the Hell, or take the Hell, I should say. So the Dragons here, this has just got to be Yamoja Osiris, right? Like
100%.
No reason to stray from that.
You don't want to leave the Osiris through for another phase because of how good it is against the Hell and how pretty good it is against the Yamoja also. So I think you just guarantee the Osiris here, and then you have a good, easy setup comp against this Hell and good dive against her.
Yeah, I like it for here for the Dragons.
Gilgamesh is also still up for grabs, though, for the Titans, and I do think that there is some value here, a little bit more so even, for the Gilgamesh in comparison to the Osiris, because you have to assume Jade Dragons are going to want that Osiris for themselves, and if Tartarus Titans choose to respond with the Gilgamesh, I think that Winds of Shamash would be great, actually, at kind of preventing that Osiris from having a really strong collapse on this Hell with that River's Rebuke.
Worth noting that been picked 4 times so far today. Osiris 0-4. Picked twice, I think, by the Warriors in a tough matchup, but still worth noting because it's 0-2 in this series so far as well. Erlong Shen was banned by the Titans in game number 2, piloted by Sam in game number 1, picked in the exact same spot that Sam picked it for the Jade Dragons in game 1, now in Layers' hands for game number 3. Erlong, good, but not so much against Yamoja.
I think it's just got to be they are heavily prioritizing this 2v2.
Yeah.
Every single game, each 2v2 has either been strong or just at least to try to avoid the fight like the Kama and Tia was. So I think at this point, a little meta has came about that if you don't win this 2v2, you think you are at a massive disadvantage. So you'll be seeing this Hell, Erlang, Osiris picked early for that 2v2.
And it's good 2v2. Hell, Erlong Shen, very, very strong. We'll see if that can change the way that has gone in the early stages so far in this set, because like I mentioned, Jade Dragons have gotten a kill at level 2 or level 3 in both games now through the first 2. So it's a Khepri ban by the Jade Dragons. Makes sense. That was a pick that ended up playing very, very well for Aurora last time around. And now you're looking at mid laners because Hurwin's Hell, that was his pick the last 2 games, taken away this time by Paul. Morgan Le Fay, Giannis still on the table. Have to imagine that's where the Titans are going to go with their next ban, if they're looking to ban out Hurry.
I think the Janus may not even get picked because of how weak his 2v2 actually is. They might look to go elsewhere, somewhere that can actually fight in that 2v2 or maybe get onto the Hell in that mid game. I'm thinking, I don't know exactly what Hurry's god pool is after most of these gods are gone and then Janus, but like something like a Zhong, if it's something he plays, actually can fight in that 2v2 pretty decently and dive the Hell late game.
I'm actually starting to wonder if Gilgamesh is even a concern between these two teams, because as far as Sanford Soccer is concerned, I mean, we've been seeing the Osiris, we've been seeing the Erlong. I'm definitely anticipating that we're going to see a lot more prevalence placed into this Erlong Shen moving forward. The Poseidon, however, is a really interesting pickup here because you have the Whirlpool, which I think can be useful against the likes of an Erlong, a Rom. Hell, you know, kind of hit or miss because she has that movement speed to get out before the cripple ever actually has a chance to apply. But Kraken is just such a fickle ultimate to fight around.
It is. It's feast and famine. Those are the only 2 options. You either get a big one or you feel like you didn't get much value out of it. But among Poseidon players, Hurwind, one of the most storied in the league, and very, very comfortable on that pick. I kind of like it here for the Dragons. Gives you some of that zone control. His level 2 is crazy in comparison to a lot of other mages, whether you want him to wave clear or fight. And Hell can heal unless I one-shot her with a Kraken. It puts pressure on her to have to go beat Xandagus. I kind of like the pick.
I mean, a lot of the Titans comp struggles against the Poseidon. Rama can't really roll out of it. He can't get up into the air, so you're almost always forcing Aegis if you can get onto him. Same with Fenrir. He's not really going to be doing much other than being able to ult the Kraken. Serb, like another one, he's going to have to end up ulting it and take the stun after because he won't be able to use his movement speed to get out of it, or his movement ability to get out of it. That Poseidon pick might be a really good pick because that 2v2 also is super strong.
I like it. In Serket now, you want to talk about strong 2v2. Serket, very, very good at that, brings that lockdown. I think I'm a little bit worried now seeing this Osiris in solo in Serket in the jungle, even though it's assassin versus warrior. Osiris certainly the higher damage output character of the 2. Are you guys at all worried about the damage output here for the Jade Dragons? Because it isn't easy to confirm damage on this team.
I mean, Hell isn't really like that hard of a god to kill if you can mitigate that anti-heal. So I think the Serket Osiris should be enough damage. You also have Yemoja's ult you can't really avoid.
Sure.
I do think it's maybe a little bit of a problem when it comes late game, and Hell's probably got a defense item like that mantle and then maybe a little bit of health somewhere else. But no, I think the Serket's a great pick. You would have seen it in the other game with the Titans picking it, but Lairs doesn't play that pick, and Aurora really doesn't play that pick either. So I think Serket is something that people should have looked for more against this Hell, but I think this is the first opportunity that it can actually be played.
Titans just continue to stick with the theory craft of we're just going to look for outright burst damage before you have an opportunity to look for the setup prior to. And that's one of the things about Fenrir versus Serket. I mean, you had the Brutalize to kind of follow through with the Deathbane, but I'm really just interested to see what Hurrywin ends up doing with this Poseidon in the mid and early game.
A critical game 3, a do or die almost. I mean, certainly going down and needing a 2-game-in-a-row victory in order to secure the set is not where you want to be. And we got Dolson and Gormizer working on a brand new handshake, bringing you game number 3.
Yeah, I don't know if it's brand new. It's brand new to us, but it's a storied handshake. We did the old over the top, and then you wrap back down and go underneath, and it took us about 4 tries. And I don't even know if we got it all.
We got it on the 4th time.
We did get it on the 4th time, and that's all that matters. 3rd time, we'll see the Tartarus Titans and the Jade Dragons up against one another here today, and this one important, Gore, as far as turning the tides of momentum here in this set. Best of 5. So important to remember, we will not end in this game. Could potentially end in game 4. The Jade Dragons start off the first half of game 2, Gore, the exact same way they did game 1. Except the Titans dove on Hurrywind, and then dove on Hurrywind,
and then dove on
Hurrywind. And then the game was over, and the Tartarus Titans are able to turn around like a 7,000 gold lead. And so you can't count this team out. And Hurrywind, tired of being dove on, doesn't necessarily draft more mobility for himself, but maybe something that can turn around some of that damage in this Poseidon.
Actually, I think it's interesting. So Poseidon, we don't see him a lot. If you're looking at this, first off, Benji almost gets killed off right there, and that's good pressure for FineOK to start things off. Also worth noting that Osiris typically in the jungle in the solo lane, which is maybe something to come back to. But it is this Poseidon who, as you mentioned, maybe not super mobile, has some decent self-peel. he's only been played twice this year. So if you're looking at it and you're like, man, when have we seen Poseidon? It's not been a lot. So it makes sense to be excited for it. But one of those 2 games was Hurriwind and the Dragons playing it, and they won that game. So it is something that they have had in the back pocket and have kind of had prepared mentally. I'm excited to see how it goes. Aggro had mentioned it on the desk, but I can't count the amount of times we've seen a great Poseidon pick where Krakens are on point, and then you miss that one, and that's the only one that mattered and the only one people will remember.
And I will say, from a caster standpoint, it's so much fun to watch this pick. I mean, even a viewer standpoint, but you see just a massive Kraken, and suddenly your eyes are drawn to it. And Hurriwind has the ability to hit those in this game. Layers on another new pick here in this set. It's going to be the Erlang Shen, and this is a pick we've already seen find success in game number 1 for Sam for Soccer, who has also pivoted here. Gora Cirquette for Sam. And if the story continues, it'll be a lot of early pressure from Sam building up this lead. Do you think this Cirquette pick has that same potential?
I think it's going to be essential to them. I don't know if we're going to get to see Sam pick up the same amount of presence that he had on the Erlang early on. I think Cirquette tends to lend itself a little bit more mid-late in the same presence, same setup style we saw the Erlang. Although the Erlang, that setup style turned into, I'm taking these kills very, very fast. So maybe he'll be able to pick that up. And Cirquette is a good god to do that with, but I think it matches that Erlang style pretty solidly. So I expect Sam to have a good game. I just don't know if it's going to be as obnoxiously good as that original Erlang game was for them. But I also think it's essential here. I mean, you've got anti-heal from the Osiris, you've got anti-heal now from Sam, and that's going to be helpful versus Paul trying to shut down and control this hell.
Sam for Soccer taunts Layers on in, and this is something the Des talked about. The 2v2 is strong, but it's also strong for the Titans. And how many times have we seen a hell at the forefront of first blood here in this set, Gore? I'd argue all 3 games, and now it's Paul grabbing first blood on the hell for the Titans.
If it weren't for the fact that Paul has the exact same gamer pose every time we see him, that one that you see in the bottom left, I would imagine he'd be laughing and saying that's how it feels, because that is 2 games in a row that Hurry has been in that position, dealing all that damage. And this time around, Paul gets to showcase that, she still deals a lot of damage, and Poseidon doesn't have a lot to escape from.
And it's hell plus Erlang Shen.
Yeah,
and that's
not
what Hurriwind and Sam for Soccer did in game 1.
Maybe it's Layers who's laughing. Haha, that's what it felt like.
Right, effectively on cooldown in game 1. And now Hurriwind, not level 5 yet, will have the Kraken, and that's where this lane can turn around. You get dove on, you have your beads, you can turn around a lot of damage and a lot of that engage once you hit level 5 here for Hurriwind. So, not all said and done by any means in the mid lane just yet. But it is something that Hurriwind, somewhat immobile here, has got to be concerned about. Sam for Soccer on this Erlang Shen as well in game 1 hit some big taunts that game, setting up for the rest of the team. And I think Layers, we talked, Gore, a lot about what went right for the Titans at the end of game 2 to bring them back into that game from such a deficit, and how everyone piling on Hurriwind. That Ratatosker looked great from Layers as well. He built Glass Cannon, and you talk about the snipes from Cyclone that hit on the ROM, the range damage from Paul that hit with the Soul Ultimate. Layers kind of had free dunk in the back line as well on the Ratatosker. So Layers, I think, had a great turnaround performance later on in game 2. And the tug of war in the jungle now continues with Layers off to a good start.
And I'm going to be watching again with bated breath, because I think the jungles right now are the ones that are going to really guide this game. I think in game 1 we got to see that a lot from Sam specifically. Game 2, we saw a little bit from Sam, and then we started to see that pivot away. He didn't have the same control, and that inevitably led to the Dragons not being able to get and amass as much of a lead as they could have. Yes, the gold was massively in their favor, but the map state didn't really start swinging their way. And so I think that watching Sam, watching Layers is going to be important here. The problem is that Aurora and Mike are also the ones who have been kind of stamping their names on this, and that Fenrir is scary.
Yep, he is. And Aurora has Ragnarok, Hurriwind has beads. So can Aurora strip away a set of beads? Yes, Hurriwind has used them, but Aurora still has the ultimate. Kraken used by Hurriwind up in the sky. Taunt back from Layers, won't connect on a save for Soccer, but Aurora gets it done all on his own in the back, and Hurriwind down for the second time in game 3.
And they did a pretty much everything that you could to stop Aurora there. The beads came out, but a little too early. That's 2 times in 2 days now. If you were watching the SCC yesterday, I believe we saw that happen as well, where it's just a little bit of patience goes a long way on a Fenrir, and sometimes you don't want to clamp down immediately. Wait for them to pop their beads, and then pick them up right afterward. Then a great Rivers Rebuke from Mike as well to block him off to make sure that he's walled away.
Yep.
And it still wasn't enough to separate it. Aurora, much like you said, just kind of, again, Thanos meme, fine, I'll do it myself.
I'll do it myself.
And gets it done.
Aurora's got Sledge early on. This has been the popular item pickup with Fenrir support. And that feels good, right? Because, you know, early on, depending on how you want to itemize on supports, you feel probably like you're lacking a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
But Aurora's
not on Fenrir.
Not on Fenrir, right? You're kind of a pseudo-warrior at this point in the game. If you're able to jump on Hurrywind on cooldown, who doesn't have beads for 1.5 minutes, Aurora does have beads. And so return ganks, you know, the potential at an all-time high here. If you can continue to pile on Hurrywind on this immobile Poseidon in the mid lane, that is the avenue for the Tartarus Titan score, maybe, to keep this pace going in Game 3.
And builds are really where I'm keeping my eyes, not just the Sledge and watching where Aurora goes, which feels like and looks like it's going to be the Thieves next, but also Paul, who's gone for the Doom Orb, as well as Hurry.
Or maybe it's Polar Bear Mike that's going to get jumped on this time in the Lion's Den, and Polar Bear Mike will not escape, and it's layers on the board now, and the Erlong Shen finally gets his just desserts. 101 for Layers, 102 for Paul, who's been a part of every single kill. I wonder if we're going to see a hellless game at any point here in this set, Gore. Both teams want it because it's been looking good despite a loss for the Jade Dragons in Game 2.
Well, it's actually, and this is weird, we don't typically do this during the cast where I talk about the pick ban strategy, but banning out the Cabrakan, whatever it is the Dragons have for it, has been beneficial to them because now you get to first pick this hell. I think the Titans played this really well.
They did, and the Titans are going to get the Gold Fury. It's a page out of the Jade Dragons playbook, and at this point, you know, that's just good Smite. You get a kill on left, you get pressure, you're going to take down the Gold Fury, but it's something, of course, that the Jade Dragons like to do, but the Tartarus Titans, being a good Smite team, are going to play that same play style as well. So an early Gold Fury to the Tartarus Titans, an early gold lead to the Tartarus Titans to the tune of about 2.4K. There's something about 2,000 gold leads like 8 minutes into the game here.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
And so we've seen one team capitalize on that, and that's Jade Dragons in Game 1. We've seen one team capitalize on that and then lose, and that's Jade Dragons in Game 2. And now it's the Titans with a bit of a different look, an early game lead.
Yeah.
And feeling comfortable with the way things are going. I think worth talking about, though, Gore, there's been a lot of early objectives secure in the Gold Fury and the Pyromancer department without huge steal potential. Hurrywind with this Kraken, of course, can disrupt a team fight. But if at any point we see a contested objective, you got to look at that Kraken for what's going to secure it.
Yeah, I mean, Kraken and then what's next on the list? Realistically, Cyclone Spin? Like the snipes maybe? At least for steal potential. I don't even know if I would throw that in for a secure objective. You should be using those snipes elsewhere. And much like we saw last time, snipes onto Hurrywind this game should be pretty easy. Maybe on the Mike. I mean, it feels like it's going to be good for Cyclone Spin as long as they can keep up this pace. And I see no reason why they need to slow down, really. This is the first time, I mean, we've got, what, collectively maybe 10 minutes total of the Titans being in the lead so far this set.
You're right.
And so I think this is a good showcase for them. It's just whether or not they can keep that pressure up. Pyromancer comes to my mind in a few seconds.
What happens to Layers here? Stanford Soccer blinks on him, sends him right back, but Layers walks away. Great Rivers Rebuke from Poor Bear Mike, but Layers sends out the taunt. Will the heal come out in time? No, it won't. Stanford Soccer gets the Jade Dragons on the board early. Now for an answer back, Aurora uses the beads underneath the tower, and Panda Cat's rotated on through to the 1v1 on the left side of the map, and the Jade Dragons with a 1-2 punch mid and left.
I mean, Panda Cat just gets a solo kill. He just kind of drops it. His team's popping off in mid. It feels like it was a 4v4. You get solo laners in there. A great ult from Mike. And yet it's going to be Layers, which is a great pickup kill for them. Hurry being able to get a little bit of credit on that one. I think you need this for the Poseidon, but also a good solo kill. I think it is necessary for Panda Cat to have a good game early on because Cyclone Spin, especially with those snipes late game, can really eclipse the Danzabura.
Now that lane gets difficult for Cyclone Spin because, of course, there are some lanes, Gore, where you talk about 1v1 potential, all that sort of stuff. Ultimately, you can play safe. Zanza's not going to let you do that. If Panda Cat senses an opening, that rocket is just going to ride right on in, and you almost don't have a choice but to try to take that 1v1. Cyclone Spin had to use the beads and the ultimate.
Speaking of rocket.
And I imagine we're going to get a look at that here.
This is what you get to do. I mean, it is about as far, I want to say, like, forward. You just go in and look, part of that is a lot of damage. I think a great initiation from Panda from the ult. But you also had to, like, I'm going to give a lot of credit to a lot of hunters here. Hitting your autos in moments like that where all it takes is one miss, and that's a dropped kill. So shout-outs to Panda Cat for making sure that he locks that one down. Otherwise, Cyclone Spin is none the wiser.
Right, and Cyclone Spin had ultimate, wasn't able to use it. So if Panda Cat drops the ball on a couple auto attacks there, Cyclone Spin able to get up into the ult. Maybe Cyclone Spin
turns it around.
Turns that around. Gets a kill onto Panda Cat. Unfortunately, Cyclone Spin without beads is going to get dove on here. The snipe will happen this time, but the DOT from Sanford Soccer will clean up that kill. What can Aurora? What can Layers get done here? Can you block the rocket? Yes, you can. Ragnarok will seal Panda Cat's fate in as well. And Paul the one who picks it up. Sanford Soccer trying to leap away. Watch out. Kraken doesn't do much to Layers.
In fact, it feels like it ends up doing nothing. The heal pops through. Layers wants to fight.
It's a great Rivers rebuke from Polar Bear Mike to keep the Titans where they are, but Layers
so low.
will walk on away. Aurora has now left back in. Sanford Soccer down. Benji's here as well. It started off great for the Dragons, but it's going to end in disaster.
I mean, what a turnaround. And look, Aurora just gets to hang out in the jungle, more than happy for that to go the way that it did. I mean, yeah, unfortunate. Cyclone Spin died there, right? I can't even remember. The Titans did not look better with the way they turned that around. And a lot of it, look, I'm going to throw him under the bus because that's 2 in a row now I've watched from Hurrywin. The last one in mid lane, it felt like his Kraken hit most of his teammates, not anybody else. Here, it feels like it does nothing against Layers. I mean, he's on the very side of it, if anything. I think we got to see those Krakens turn up.
He's 3 levels down, Core. Hurrywind is level 11. So is Sanford Soccer, but jungle, that's pretty standard right now. Layers only 1 level ahead. Paul is 304 on the Hell, 3 levels ahead of Hurrywind. And it's, you know, it's Hurrywind's fault to the extent that the Jade Dragons chose this pick. But Hurrywind's just getting jumped on, right? I mean,
every single one.
There's only so much that you can do, and that's not me trying to bail out Hurrywind. I just think the Tartarus Titans have chosen Poseidon as their target, and they've capitalized on it. They've kept Hurrywind behind. Charon's coin now there, but we've already mentioned the lack of damage that we've seen. Layers barely took any. Paul was able to heal up more than I think the Kraken did.
Yep.
And so now it's scale time. It's scale time, baby. Give us time and we'll climb is what the Jade Dragons are thinking, but it's going to take a little while to get there.
That's the key for a lot of this. But I like Hell, I like Cerberus, I like Erlong, I like Rom late game.
Tartarus Titans don't get worse.
I was going to say, it's one of those things where you have to just figure out your fights. And like you said, good scaling for the Dragons, good itemization for the Dragons will help keep them alive in this. But you're starting to look at gold deficits, 4,000 in the favor of the Titans. They're going to have to start planning much more smart engagements, not just, trying to go and find a pick. You collapse in on Cyclone Spin when he's alone, and then all of a sudden you overcommit to this fight. You're diving in, there's 3 members of the Titans. Where'd they even come from? Right? It's those moments where I think the Dragons are going to have to select a little bit more cautiously when they go for those engages, because otherwise the Titans just keep turning it around beautifully.
Fortunately, Hurrywind has done the same amount of damage as PBM 14 minutes into the game. Kraken is here. Will we see it stolen away? Can Hurrywind make a play that'll keep the Jade Dragons relevant in this game? It's been reset by the Tartarus Titans as Benji and FineOK poke at one another on the right side of this fight. Benji showed up big in that last engagement as well. Has Blink, has Ultimate, has Aurora, who has leapt into the back line. Some damage out from Paul will slow this down. Watch out, though. Sanford Soccer will dash in. Nobody in the Stygian Torment.
And that's going to be a big ult away from Benji. He's also half health. I mean, you've got health,
Riptide.
So maybe not too worried about it. Good Riptides to keep everyone locked in. But with that Kraken, it's so much more difficult for the Titans, actually, to try and fight into the Primal
if the Jade Dragons can get this low enough, Hurrywind can secure it. But then the Titans might have the opportunity
to just
jump on you in that fight once you don't have that disengage. That is so much of the damage that Poseidon wants to do. And while both solo laners are here, they're looking around. They want to fight. They finally get some action ready to go. But both teams, despite a pretty hefty lead for the Tartarus Titans, we're playing this one slow.
10 pairs of beads in the game, and guess what? All of them are off cooldown right now. That's going to be really crucial, specifically against Aurora right now. That Ragnarok's still available. He's got a great stun leveled up there for the jump. So all it takes is a good engage from the Titans. They could potentially at least burn some beads, maybe find a kill.
Panda Cat's doing a lot of work here. Panda Cat is 2 levels up over Cyclone Spin going into this fight. So bad in one lane for the Jade Dragons, great on another side of the map. Can Panda Cat get involved? Can Panda Cat carry a lot of the weight here? Aurora is alone in the back, but has not gotten taken down. The River's Rebuke will separate out this fight. Kraken gone. Kraken gets nothing for the Jade Dragons, and the Tartarus Titans don't want to jump in just yet. Instead, it's Benji being taunted back.
They're going to get the slowdown, but you can see not a lot of commitment from the Dragons. They do burn a lot of ults. If that River's Rebuke locks down Aurora, that's a kill, and the Dragons are starting to run forward. That's a great play for the Titans to get out of there, but they're still aggressing onto the Primal.
No Kraken, so steal potential limited.
Much lower
for the Jade Dragons. Primal Fury going quickly for the Tartarus Titans. Polar Bear Mike, Panda Cat in range. Taunt from Layers will secure the Tartarus Titans, the Primal Fury, and a kill onto PBM.
I mean, that's just a clean play from the Titans. They recognize what strengths the Dragon have. They strip it away. They get, I want to say, maybe a little lucky in there that they don't lose anybody in the process. And then they just get to restart the engagement, as you said, knowing that a lot of those tools are down. You get 2 pairs of beads that are burned now on the side of the Dragons. You lose the Kraken, and as you had highlighted, tic-tac-toe 3 in a row. Hurry's had 3 that have just not impacted the game, not impacted the fights the way that you need Poseidon to be impacting them right now. And still 2 levels down over there. Panda Cat, who had a level or 2 level advantage, that's started to dissipate a little bit. I think the Dragons are still absolutely in a spot to continue fighting up against the Titans. That's a great showcase that even though there's 5,000 gold disparity, they're not running away with the game. I do think it's also a showcase that if the Dragons don't get exactly what they need, the Titans are going to take the fight every time.
It's the same conversation as Game 2, but the roles are flipped. The Tartarus Titans, a very, very good team here as of late, and I imagine that continues on into Phase 3.
We saw it today.
We saw it today already, and their ability to turn around a game. Now they're ahead. This is a difficult team to turn around a game on, but in the same way we gave Titans credit in Game 2, and the potential for that game turning around, you have to talk about the Dragons and their potential to turn things around here in Game 3.
And that's where mainly Yamoja comes into me. I think Serket's going to be solid. We've seen what Sam's trying to do. Fine OK as well joining these fights. Osiris is a top pick for a reason. But I think PBM is the key for this team.
Hurrywin's back in base. If the Tartarus Titans can do this quickly, there is virtually no steal potential from the Jade Dragons. And yeah, the Tartarus Titans are doing this one quickly. The Fire Giant lets out a roar, and only the Jade Dragons are the ones outside of the pit to hear it. Tartarus Titans get it cleanly. 18 minutes in. Gore, these two teams, they have filled up the gas tanks with something fierce today. We are going quickly. We got a 15-minute Fire Giant earlier. We got sub 20 minutes in Game 2. And an 18-minute FG for the Titans in Game 3.
Now, this is one of those games, I've been talking about this set a lot, like we did it in Waiting Room, just kind of preparing for it, where realistically, if you expect the Dragons to win most of their wins as of late, you're expecting a 20 to 25-minute game where they're in control 5 minutes in, and they control it for the next 20. But when you're looking at the Titans, they're not just a team that is willing to go the distance and go long in the game, but, I mean, you could tell me that this game goes 40, and if I had to hedge my bets, I'm going to lean towards the Titans winning it. I think they are really, really adept, and they've done a great job at translating whatever playstyle they had before, and, of course, all their tenure, save for Layers on this team. Every single one of these players has been around for years. They've done a great job of turning that into some great late-game team fights, and I think that if they can keep up this pace, I mean, now 7,000 gold, pressuring onto Tier 2s, the Dragons are definitely in a much more precarious situation, and they are going to have to stay grouped. I mean, last time they really just got caught with their pants down around the FG.
Lots of gold still for the Tartarus Titans to make up. Draugr buff for the Dragons. Yay, that'll help out maybe a little bit. But Paul is going to be so difficult to kill at this point, not only with the healing, but Breastplate of Valor with a Doom Orb and a Soul Reaver on either side of that build, and then some damage with the artifact a bit later on. You're going to have to dive onto this hell and then some.
He also, hasn't died, so dive onto this hell and then some. Get him out of there. Last time around, that's what helped the Titans beat the Dragons. Hurrywind was dying instantly. The fight started, Hurrywind's dead. Fight started, Hurrywind's dead. That's 3 times, and who's going to do it? I mean, Panda? No, like, you're not going to use Danza to dive all 5 of them. You don't have a Ratatosker. You don't have the Rom snipes. And I don't know if they actually have the capabilities to deal with Paul.
And Hurrywin's,
look at that! Oh my
God!
God!
Just getting the treatment again. Gets the snipes again. And then Aurora walks on in, picks up Hurrywind, who had to use beads and Aegis, waits for him to time out. And Aurora took 0 damage on his way into that one. All of the range and the ability to take the mid laner out of the fight is the Tartarus Titans and they are making it work. Polar Bear Mike will use the ultimate here, and that's going to slow down this Phoenix Siege a little bit, but who cares, says the Tartarus Titans. Draugr buff wearing off here, maybe shortly, but I don't think it's delaying the Tartarus Titans all that much. Mid lane Phoenix gone, and Hurrywind 0-4.
I mean, it's just, look, you had your bets, and I don't know that the bets are paying off here for the Dragons as of right now. But that's where things get interesting, Dave. A minute left for this Fire Giant. They knock down a Phoenix. It's mid-Phoenix. Guess what? Mid-Phoenix, pretty easy to clear. It'd still rotate into a Fire Giant fight. Gold lead, especially with a Gold Fury spawning, it's going to take another step over towards the Titans, even further in their favor. And you can see a lot of that disparity. Survivability in the mid lane maybe is the biggest key. 4 deaths on Hurry versus none on Paul. But I do think you have to look at what the next FG fight is going to bring. The Dragons had nothing to say about that 18-minute FG, and it's because half of them weren't there. Irwin had just back to base. They had PBM and I think FineOK who saw it. There's not much you can do from that position. This next one is going to come off cooldown a minute and a half from now, and that's where I think they're going to be able to showcase a lot more strength. The Dragons just have to be present for that Fire Giant. And that's immediately a step up. But then you also have your Kraken available and Sam to engage. It's not a sure thing for them. They still have to deal with Hell Healing, Rom Snipes, good engage from Aurora and Benji. But I do think it gives them a lot more credit and a lot more merit to stay in this game.
Rom Snipes, I think, pretty key there, Gore. Now in back-to-back games, Cyclone Spin has hit effectively every single one onto Hurrywind in like all of the team fights we've seen. And I think that returns to that range conversation where, sure, if Hurrywind can delete Paul, it's great, but he's got to walk forward to do that. You don't want to walk forward into anyone, right? in the same way that it felt like Paul on the Soul could range damage from a little bit further out. And so those little nuances definitely make life more difficult for Hurrywind here. But I do circle back to Cyclone Spin and the way that these snipes have been connecting now in back-to-back games, where, of course, in the team fights, the ROM has looked good. But it hasn't been the Hunter style of play with the auto attacks. It's been one tapping Hurrywind with your ultimate and then winning the 5v4.
And you were asking about this, and I wonder like if the desk will touch on this as well, but you know, how do you deal, like, will we see a Hellless game? And honestly, I'm not as worried about the Hell. I think the Hell is a problem, but so far the Hell hasn't been the like pinpoint, hey, that's what we need to stop. I think I would ban away this ROM if I get the opportunity to try to control Cyclone Spin a little bit. Because, look, Hurry's not on Hell this time. He's not getting it done the same way.
Yeah, Fire Giant's going to go down here for the Tartarus Titans. You know what's funny? Cyclone Spin has the least amount of damage in the game right now with 3,000. I think every bit of that is from
all of it's on Hurry.
I think all of it is from Cyclone Spin's ultimate on Hurrywind, because Cyclone Spin uses the ult, deletes Hurry, and then by the time he crashes down, there's no one left to auto attack. Cyclone Spin has the least amount of damage into this game, but it's all that matters. Here he goes, up to the sky. I wonder who his target's going to be. It's the backline. Did not one-shot anyone this time. Hurrywind gobbles up Aurora with the Kraken, and the Jade Dragon shows signs of life, and FineOK presses down on the gas pedal with the Lord of the Afterlife. Cyclone Spin gets some auto attack damage in there, and FineOK ends up going down.
Went from 3,000 to now 5,300. He's going to be able to get aggressive into this. You let him get into the auto attack range, and it's going to look great. But now look, Layers is going for the zone.
Oh, he's rolling forward, and he is whittling down the health bar of Sanford Soccer and Polar Bear Mike. And the Tartarus Titans, they want more. They want game 2. They want to push us into a game 4 with a 1-game advantage. And the Jade Dragons are just watching it happen. The Titan loses a little bit of health. Right side Phoenix still up. Looks like that might be what the Tartarus Titans came for.
I was a little worried for him. Mid-Phoenix is about to respawn as well. I think the Titans are going to pump the brakes, wait a little bit, 2 seconds before Aurora's even respawned, let alone before he can join the fight. And FineOK has a little bit longer, but FineOK is going to spawn right there, like 10 feet away from where the Titans are.
And you can see Cyclone Spin trapped in the cripple field, and that's where this ROM can get put down. Sanford Soccer blinks on and forces both of the actives out of Cyclone Spin, and the Jade Dragons nearly get themselves a kill here, but it is right and mid-Phoenix gone. And 2 minutes and 15 seconds left on the FG power play. Let's send ourselves to left and move things on to game 4, say the Titans.
There are so many things that I can touch on after that fight. There's so many little things that are on cooldown right now that are worth mentioning, but I'm actually going to mention something not on cooldown. And look at Paul's relics. He is 4-0-6, did not use beads, did not use Aegis. Nobody is getting to this hell, and that is going to be troublesome, to say the least, for the Dragons. I think it's just so difficult to get back there. We've already highlighted that, but if you aren't able to even get the beads, to get the Aegis, to force Paul to feel slightly uncomfortable, then it's going to help keep everybody else alive. We'll give credit to Heroin, though. Great Kraken that time around. Great way to pop a roar. I think that slows the Titans down. Otherwise, they probably win in that engagement. And so if you get one more like that, a good defense potentially around left might have to be under the Titan. This is going to be the end-all be-all, and you're missing a lot of safety relics on the side of the Dragons, so you have to be very careful and very picky about your engage.
Charon's coin into Soul Reaver for Hurrywind will help out with the frontliners who have been the ones underneath, or I guess above, those Krakens more times than not. Midwave is receiving the FG treatment right now, as the Phoenix treatment rather, as the Fire Minions walk on in. Right wave is going to be pushing up here shortly, so the Tartarus Titans playing with time. They've got 50 seconds left on the FG buff, but if the Jade Dragons can stall out this siege, things could get interesting later on.
I like the way that they're playing this right now. Again, cautious. Heroin just got his beads back, so you're already feeling a little bit better. 20 seconds for Panda Cat to get their Aegis. That is the small things that are key right now, because the Dragons can't be put under pressure. Cyclone Spin still has 40 seconds before either of his relics are up, so there's good turnaround potential for the Dragons here.
Benji's in the back, and he's on Hurrywind. Sanford Soccer will peel out for his mid laner. The left side Phoenix, an afterthought, and now Layers will taunt in a couple. Panda Cat uses the rocket to get on out. That's River's Rebuke as well from PBM. 3 ultimates down for the Dragons.
And the snipes just now used from Cyclone Spin did not connect the way that we've gotten used to. That's 2 fights in a row. And so far, I want to say seemingly 2 similar fights, although the Titans have knocked down all 3 Phoenixes at this point. They just need a fight in the Titan room.
Kraken is easily the most impactful ultimate that the Jade Dragons have left, and if the Titans go sieging, it's gotta be a big one from Hurrywind. The Titan is under attack. The Fire Minions have made their way in. Aurora is in as well, looking for a target with the Ragnarok. Hurrywind walks on away, still has his beads. In the back line, Hurrywind watching along, but all the damage is there from the Tartarus Titans. Paul on a rampage. The Titan now an afterthought, and we go on to Game 4 with the Titans ahead.
And you know what? Paul finally had to use his Aegis at the very end. Finally, there's some damage done to him. Well, maybe a little bit too late. That hell is just so problematic. But even before that, I mean, hell wasn't a problem while Cyclone Spin's hitting those snipes. It wasn't until those snipes stopped doing anything at the beginning of the fight that they started to hit. I think that we're going to start to see a pivot. The Titans don't need to change much at all because they've been doing just well. That was a great game from them. The Dragons are going to have to change things around. The last couple of minutes looked a lot better from them, but that first 10, 15 even was maybe uncharacteristic.
Now we're maybe seeing why Taco picked this Tartarus Titans team to win the whole thing here in the Phase 2 playoffs. 1 game away from knocking your Phase 1 champion Jade Dragons out of the Phase 2 playoffs. Will we get there? Stick around and find out.
The cereal kids are crazy for. Cthulhu's. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity. Crazy crunchity. Crazy crunch.
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y. Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time is a construct. They not all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced breakfast. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Welcome back, everybody, to the desk as Game 3 is a Tartarus Titans victory, an impressive performance from the squad. Hell for Paul turns out to be better than the Umoja. We figured out that question. Aggro, Inbound, and Taco to break it down. Is it that simple? I mean, Hell that good?
That Hell is looking unbeatable unless they just like completely make a mistake or just completely like play bad. That Hell actually seems almost unbeatable right now with how the games are being played.
I mean, it's just been domination from the Titans ever since that turnaround in game number 2. For a little bit, it looked like the Jade Dragons might be able to get back into it, but Hurwind on this Poseidon did not look particularly good, and that's exactly what the Jade Dragons couldn't afford to have happen. This early beads, Aurora waits that out perfectly. Titans playing really well right now, Taco.
The Titans have definitely cleaned things up a bit since that Game 1 performance, but I think that this really all comes back to the same sort of conversation that we've been having throughout each of these desk segments, especially around those picks and bans. That 2v2 fight, it's not even so much about the team fight between these two teams. It really just feels as if whichever mid-jungle gets off to the hot start, that's going to be what dictates the remainder of the game from that point forward. And I think even the first clip that we saw was a level 4 Paul just demolishing Hurry with some incredible burst damage out of the Hell.
Cyclone Spin got soloed in this game, but didn't seem to matter too much. That was Panda Cat's only kill. Cyclone in those team fights just consistently peppering Hurwind with the long-range ROM snipes. Only 11,000 damage for Hurry on this Poseidon in comparison to Paul's 19,000. And oh yeah, 18,000 player healing. That's like taking Hurwind and PBM's damage and tuning it to 0 in this game. That's what Paul's healing did. Is that good?
I think it's all right.
Okay, just making sure.
I'm thinking, how about no more Hell today? She has won the 2v2 in all 3 games from this set. I don't remember exactly from the last set, but she has won the 2v2s, and that is what these games are played around. And the Hell, it is too much pressure, too much 2v2, too much late game, too much basically everything. I think you just got to start to ban it.
I mean, that leaves open Tiamat or Raijin for Paul, but I'm at the point where I'm thinking, like, how much worse is that than the Hell? You know what I mean? I mean, at some point, you've got to pick your poison, and I feel like I'm on the Bobby side, that I'm done seeing the hell in Paul's hands in this set.
Aggro, I mean, the Jade Dragons quite literally picked poison in that last game, and
nice.
it still didn't
Was not
really
enough.
seem to be the difference maker here.
No, solid work by you, Taco. I appreciated
you.
that. Cirquette obviously did not work, though, and obviously Osiris stinks because he is now 0-5 on the day. Call the dev team. We're canceling the nerfs to Osiris because that's what you told me to do, Bobby.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it.
I'd love that. Let's keep those cooldowns low. I love
Okay.
low cooldown Osiris.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll let them know. That shouldn't be a problem. I'm sure we can get that fixed right away.
Can we get a Sundering Axe buff while we're at it?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, I think we can make that work. Look, I mean, right now the Jade Dragons, they did not get off to the start that they did in games 1 and 2. Games 1 and 2, if you're a Dragons fan, I feel like you can write off that game 2 loss as, hey, we made a mistake. We were still in control in the early game. This game, they were not in control in the early game, and even though the Titans started to run away with it and make it look one-sided, they still had a lead in the early stages. So now, if you're on the Jade Dragon side, over the last however many minutes of gameplay, the last 5 minutes of Game 2 and all of Game 3 you've been behind, I think they've got to make a pretty significant change in picks and bans to try and get a lead, namely in that 2v2.
I mean, I kind of agree, but at the same time, I slightly disagree because I think this Hell has kind of just dictated all the games. If you look at Game 1, Hell dictated it, they won. Game 2, Hell dictated it, they threw, but however, they were looking very good the entire time. And then Game 3, Hell carried, the Titans ended up winning. I think at this point, this Hell is shown to be just too strong, and it needs to be first picked or it needs to be banned.
Well, they're in first pick now, so theoretically they could do that, whereas the last 2 games the Jade Dragons have been on the second pick side, which enabled Paul to get that Hell in the first pick position last time around. So the Jade Dragons have at least that adjustment made underneath their belt. And when in that first pick position, the Jade Dragons banned Raijin, Artemis, and Odin. I've got a feeling the Titans might be banning Hell, and they kick it off. I do think, I'm a little surprised though, Bobby, because in situations like this, isn't it better, if you've committed to banning this character, isn't it better to just ban it last to make the Jade Dragons think, like, oh, if we do this, maybe we can get Hell? I think there's some value in holding that ban a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there is some value. Maybe, we can plan around this Hell, they're not banning it, and then it comes out in the third slot. I do think there's a little bit of value there, but there's just no way for, anything, for the Jade Dragons to believe that Hell is getting through. It's just been so powerful.
Yeah, I guess they have to assume that it's going to get banned. So it is, as is Soul. Seems like the Titans might be trying to focus in on Heroine's God Pool in this set. I mean, that Poseidon did not look particularly good, so it makes some sense when you think of it that way. But now there's Tiamat that you have to worry about, and the Jade Dragons, if they don't ban Tiamat, the Titans almost have to dedicate all 3 bans towards him.
Titans could potentially ban Tiamat, but I do think that there is a world where the Titans actually allow the Tiamat to go through because, again, I'm looking at this from that 2v2 perspective, and I think if I'm the Tartarus Titans, I have that similarity there as well because Tiamat is not known for the early game pressure. It's all about the mid to late where you're really going to hit that power spike stride. So if I'm the Tartarus Titans and I'm trying to hinge everything around early game like they've done 3 games in a row so far, then sacrificing a Tiamat, if they're able to execute in the early game and not have any of these level 2, level 3 blunders where they're sacrificing first blood and then finding themselves trying to play an uphill battle the entire match, well, then Tiamat's really not the worst thing ever to let through, especially when you factor in the likes of Osiris being let through. Erlong Shen has also looked like a very popular pick here. I think that the conversation surrounding Gilgamesh pretty much off the board here because I really don't think that Tartarus Titans care whether or not those like Gilgamesh or Tiamat are left open. They're trying to force the Jade Dragons to I think, be a little bit compromised in that 2v2.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe the Jade Dragons have just taken the bait, but I still feel pretty good if I've got Tiamat one way or another, even if the games have been centered around that 2v2. It is the first pick here. Remember that in this sort of situation, in Game 1 of this set, it was Tiamat and Yemoja left open, and the Jade Dragons took the Yemoja. So the Titans decide that Yemoja is something to take off the board, and with Hell also taken out, making sure that there's as little healing as possible makes some sense.
I think the Titans are on the same page that we are, that 2v2 is so important that even trading Yemoja for Tiamat isn't that worth just because Tia's not going to give you that early game. I'm actually surprised Erlang wasn't prioritized. I think Erlang is just about the strongest it can get in that 2v2 because of the CC he has, the follow-up, the damage, like everything that he has is just super strong. You also said that Osiris is 0-5 today.
Yep.
Is that not in the back of their minds maybe? and Erlang Osiris picking them both, even though they're both great junglers, both have flex. Or I guess Osiris has flex.
Yeah, I mean, I think Final K, or no, it wasn't Final K. Who played Erlang Shen solo this phase? Someone did. It blew my mind. It was Haddix. Haddix played Erlang Shen solo, and I was like, that's crazy. And finally, the Cabrakan that has been banned like every single game away from the Jade Dragons is finally locked in here. The question is it for Final K, or is it for Sam for Soccer, or is it for PBM? It feels like all three of them could potentially play it.
And now we get to kind of see the strength of the Cabrakan, because we saw it banned 3 games in a row, and now we get to see if those bans were actually good bans. Maybe this Cabrakan runs that.
Okay, here's where I am. Cabrakan's not that good. I think he's like fine. Do you really think he was worth that prioritization?
I'm going to say, with that foul buff, if he can actually get a good use of Stone of Foul, it makes him impossible to deal with, because he's got like 23% mitigation just in his kit and the foul, or something like that.
Okay, foul helps him. Taco, how good do you think Cabrakan is?
I'm also looking, if it's Sam with Cabrakan jungle, that might be ideal here, because this Erlang Shen, probably a bigger tendency that it's going to be put into that jungle position as well. And then Cabrakan, you can't be rooted. He has tools that automatically kind of deflect some of the pressure that Erlang Shen might introduce. I'm more interested in this ROM pickup, because Cyclone Spin on the Izanami, and even when he had the ROM, he has been getting very heavily pressured out by Pandacat time and time again, just looking at the direct 1v1 between these two hunters. So duo lane priority might be where the Jade Dragons are trying to shift things back to, but seeing this Morgan, seeing this Erlang Shen, even the Osiris, because again, still that flexibility clause, I do believe that the Tartarus Titans are just going to try and force the Jade Dragons to be reined in to that mid as opposed to the side lanes.
Yeah, it could be the case. I mean, Dan Zaburo has been the pick for Pandacat so far, and he has run the duo lane 1v1, no doubt about that, but has not been able to translate that into those team fights where those ROM snipes were so critical in the last game, trying to get them for themselves this time around. And with the Morgan on the other side, bringing some more assassin identity to this Titan squad. Definitely a different playstyle for Paul, but one that we know he's pretty darn good at.
Paul loves playing like an assassin as is, and I think that that's where Layers Godpool can kind of complement him, because he's giving him the ideal transformations, whether it's Erlang, whether it's Osiris. Cabrakan maybe not as problematic if you're able to just burst through him from the get-go, and I think that Cabrakan kind of suffers the same issues as Erlang, where he can be a little bit more on that feast-or-famine side.
Khepri gets let through. I'm a little surprised. I thought that might be the second ban, Ares Khepri as the 2, but it ends up being a Danzaburo ban. Certainly Pandacat is like that matchup, but Cyclone Spin, I don't really remember playing a whole lot of Danza. I'm surprised the Khepri gets let through.
It must be like a Pandacat, like it's just maybe an unwinnable matchup that he assumes, so he just wants to ban the Dan, so he has a more free laning phase.
Pele, the pickup here for Sam. This is a Sam special, an iconic Pele player, but Pele's not exactly in the strongest spot.
I think they were taking away Aurora's Pele. So
smart.
True,
they must have
true,
missed the
true,
Khepri
true.
on the other side. Yeah, they must have.
True.
Yeah, I mean, Pele for Sam, interesting. I mean, Cabrakan or Artio now, well, I think it'll be Mike on Artio would be my guess, and Cabrakan in solo. This Pele pick, you want to talk about all in, I mean, I don't think she has the greatest 2v2. I think the Jade Dragons pretty heavily lose that 2v2 in mid right now.
I'm actually concerned that we might see Paul even utilizing this Pele against the Jade Dragons and just taking that for himself with that Changeling transformation. And when you look at what the Jade Dragons have opted for, Pele's ultimate would be fantastic in terms of diving a Tiamat alongside an Erlang or an Osiris, and then you have that Khepri. A lot of single target focus as well is kind of reinforced here as a theme for the Jade Dragons. And what does Khepri do best? He negates the single target blow up potential. And I also really like this Chernobog lock-in, because Cherno, I think, probably one of the better hunters at dealing with the Cabrakan. Normally when a hunter, when he goes into darkness and has that immunity, it's not like the Amir wall. It's a little bit easier to proc that secondary dash through those tectonic plates, or you just sit inside of the ult. You don't even have to do anything yourself, and it just wastes so much time, and it would give a prime opportunity, I think, for the Tartarus Titans to basically answer back and get everybody in position.
What do you think? We go into a game 5, Bobby?
I think this Pele could actually work out really well because of how good it is a matchup into Morgan. It's very hard for Morgan to invis away, and Pele can kind of just burst before Morgan can even get invis or transform. I really do like this Jade draft. It feels like it's actually like well-rounded. There's stuff in every lane that you can play through. I think we might be going to a game 5.
Taco?
If Sam plays like he did in Game 1, this is going to Game 5.
Can't wait to see it. Game 5 potentially on the line here. The Jade Dragons Phase 2 dreams on the line. We'll see if they can bounce back. Tartarus Titans looking to eliminate the Dragons, and we got Dave and Gore for game number 4.
We are finally on set point here, and it's Tartarus Titans who've got 2 games to get it done. Might only need 1 if the Tartarus Titans have it their way. Gore, talk about a top-to-bottom rebuild here for this Jade Dragons draft. They get themselves Sanford Soccer on the Pele. Hurrywin on a totally different look pick-wise here in this Tiamat. Final K on the Cabrakan. There's a lot to look at.
There is. I mean, this is maybe the most Dragons comp that I've seen the Dragons run in 3 weeks, maybe? Like, I mean, this fits them like a glove. But I am curious to see how it's going to translate into the game. Sam, I think, as you had heard Bobby say there on the desk, is going to have a fun matchup, at least in Nepal. And that's where a lot of these points of contention have been. It's that 2v2 in mid, because that's in the first 30 seconds to a minute. That's where everybody seems to be fighting as of right now. Paul was the one kind of leading it. You got your wish, a hellless game that we're going to have to deal with. And then you have to start weighing Morrigan versus Tiamat. They both have so many strengths and weaknesses. Erlong looked good for layers last time around. I mean, there's just so many little matchups here that I think could make or break this game. The Dragons are going to have to be the ones to step up.
Benji didn't do any damage with his little circle there. Fine-OK was just wailing away on the ground. And this Cabrakan is going to be fun to watch here, Gore. Blink for Fine-OK already got used here in this lane. Used for Benji as well. So doesn't really, I think, matter in the active department. Aren't going to be seeing these two fighting anywhere else on the map anytime soon. But I think build is going to be interesting to follow along with, and I'll return to that if maybe we saw a collapse there. But build for Fine-OK I think is going to be interesting here.
Yeah.
Glass Cannon versus Bruiser versus full-on tank. You got a lot of lockdown, but you also have the ability to one-shot. Cabrakan pretty versatile, I think, in the build department.
And I like one-up it and even say that I need it to not just have an interesting build, but I need it to perform really well, right? I mean, it's been banned by the Titans all 3 games up to this point. I think in the first ban in game number 1, it was one of the top 3 for this game, and then they banned it in, I believe, their bottom 2 there in game 2. So realistically, I want to see what Fine-OK has to offer because the Dragons haven't gotten to play it. And I think there's a lot of open opportunities for them as well. They get the RDO on their side. That feels very clean for a frontline duo to be able to control and corral the Titans in a fight.
And Layers is back, Gore, if we're keeping kind of our focus on what is now happening on the right side of the map. Layers back on this Erlong Shen. A pick that has now looked good, not only in the hands of Sam in Game 1, but Layers there in Game 3 looked good on the Erlong Shen. Layers absolutely stepping up to the plate here for this Titans team so far up against the Jade Dragons. And it's that 2v2, Gore, where the desk expressed a little concern, and that's where a lot of the fighting has been happening. And we'll see if Layers chooses to push that advantage here. As Polar Bear Mike walks in, tries to steal away the purple buff, but unable to do so. Sanford Soccer trying to give Fine-OK an easier time in lane here up against Benji, but won't end up mattering there for much. And I think worth talking about this ROM here, Gore, because Cyclone Spin, up until the end of the game in Game 3, was doing 99% of the damage with the snipes. Got to a point where the auto attacks were finally starting to hit there as well. I think a strong pick here for Panda Cat to get that ROM away from Cyclone.
I mean, good snipes, especially, again, onto Paul, onto Cyclone, onto even Layers late game, is enough to just take them out of the engagement. That's what we saw Cyclone's been doing the last few times. And typically, I'm going to harken over to the Kings. That's what Netroid likes to do. He's played a lot of this ROM over the last few weeks. But I'm more interested in the ult on the other side right now. It's going to be Cyclone Spin, because that capability to just insta-join a fight anywhere on the map is usually what helps that Chernobog get aggressive early on and really start to pull a lead over the opposing carry, because he just gets to be involved in so much more and doesn't miss out on too much farm in the process. So I think Panda Cat late game is the isolation look at him for the Dragons. I think Cyclone Spin for a lot of this game, especially once he ticks over to 5, is going to be someone that's going to be impactful for the Titans. So we'll see if he's going to be able to get as good a grip on this game as he has in the last 2.
Yeah, decision making is going to be important for Panda Cat here. Of course, you can rotate in and help out fights quickly with the snipes if you don't need to get an auto attack range. But as far as countering out split push, things like that, that's where Cyclone Spin is going to have the big advantage. Aurora back on this Khepri here, Gore, and we've seen now some success from Khepri, not only in Aurora's hands, who's looked good on it in this set already up to this point, but kind of across the league. And so that Scarab's Blessing, and you talk about maybe Sam in that Layers in that conversation, maybe even Benji. You have a couple members on your team who could get in there, find these insta-gib, kind of insta-deletes on a couple members of the Jade Dragons. Having that Scarab's Blessing to immediately pull them back out to safety could be big.
Yeah, that's something that we saw earlier. A lot of those fights initially in Game 2, the Dragons were forcing Aurora to ult themselves. And I actually like this. It's one of those odd conversations of, do we try to wait the Scarab's Blessing out, or do we just pop it and kill you again?
Right.
And for a lot of the early game, they were popping it and then killing him again. It does help deal with the movement speed that ult can give you. But I also like that later on, we got to see the pivot. It was actually in the right-hand lane. They all in on Aurora. He ults himself, and that was the last time he ulted himself. He lived that engagement, though, and that made the big deal. Then later on, got to start using that to revive those teammates. It is such a difficult ult to deal with. I mean, essentially, they have 6 lives on the Titans that you're going to have to burn through.
Oof. Could be tough for FineOK here. Rooted himself in place. Lord of the Afterlife, as well as the taunt from Layers. Double stun won't mean much. Not when the minions are keeping you right where you are. And it's the Tartarus Titans, and more specifically, Layers getting first blood yet again.
You know, this is the slowest first 5 minutes of all of these games so far.
Yeah, we're 2,000 gold in the lead one way or the other by this point in games 1 through 3.
And I was going to say, that is not a bad thing. These games have been wild for the first few minutes. I mean, the Dragons, especially in Game 1, Game 2, early game, was obnoxious amount of control. Same thing for the Titans. Maybe not quite to the same level, but still good control in that last game. But that's a great pickup. Like you said, a good taunt from Layers. That showcases exactly the kind of play that they're going to go for.
Oh, no.
I mean, look at the
Cyclone
lineup that they have. No way. Yep. Scoops it away. Nice and easy. So now you're getting a little bit of farm your way as well that you're stealing. But you get a setup from Layers for Paul, for Cyclone, and for Benji. It just feels like it is going to be really easy. The engage for the Titans later on is phenomenal. They've got so much of it.
I want to know where Paul is going to start looking with some of these transformations as well. Yeah. Oftentimes in a Morrigan comp, and maybe there is an obvious transformation that I'm just missing. Oftentimes in a Morrigan comp, it's this is who I'm transforming in, whether it's Cthulhu, Odin, things like that. It's somewhat obvious. I don't know if that's the case here for Paul in Game 4.
Imagine, so I laugh because I imagined turning into Khepri and having another Scarab's Blessing for your team, which would be very obnoxious.
That would be obnoxious.
But I actually think, on your team, Layers as well as Osiris, those are really good transformations. You might see the Artio actually come through on the other side. I think the Dragons have a couple of good picks. Hell, even Tiamat's not necessarily going to be too bad for them.
I don't think there's a lot of bad choices.
No, it's just, but like you said, there's not one standing above the others as, haha, look at me, the one right choice. And so I think Paul has a smorgasbord to just go forward with. And I'm excited to watch it because that's those are the huge turning points for a lot of Morrigan games. The damage, the assassin style play is one thing, and Paul's going to be good at that. But I'm more excited to see how those transformations happen because in the middle of a team fight, that changes everything.
And Gore, on the other side of the mid lane, and this is something I mentioned as we were getting into the game, talking about how the Dragons changed up their comp. This has got to be a turnaround performance, I think, for Hurrywin. You get arguably the best mage in the game right now. I don't even know if that's arguable. Tiamat maybe inarguably the best mage at the moment. The Poseidon was an interesting pick. Didn't work out. There was too much range and too much dive in, and the Poseidon never had the space to operate for Hurrywin. I think now to build up some confidence, especially if you're going into a Game 5, if you're the Jade Dragons, especially if we're going one more. When you get the house, when you get all the money in your corner with this Tiamat early on in the draft, I think it's got to show up big.
Yeah, and honestly, it's got all of the things in the kit to make you feel better. The minions to help cause a distraction, but realistically, you've got disengage, and you're nice and tanky enough to be able to get out of any of these bad engagements.
Can Mike help out FineOK here? Benji is plenty healthy. FineOK is not. This is a slow burn of damage, so you might just abandon this one. Benji is going to hop away. Somehow healthier than he was before that engagement started. Runic Shield is carrying its weight for Benji over there in that solo lane, so it's going to be an enhanced blue buff for Benji with no concern.
It's one thing to watch two warriors slap fight each other, or two guardians, depending on what the solo lane is. Here, a warrior guardian slapbox each other. But then you add the support of all things into that fight, and it becomes this like, okay, this is like the death of 1,000 needles. Like, it is going to take forever for someone to truly fall down.
Yep.
And as we saw, Benji didn't. You mentioned the Runic Shield. I actually like that pickup as well, just into the Dragon's Comp as a whole, but also specifically here into Fine-OK. Good for Benji early on in this lane. It might slow down some of the rest of the build, although I don't know if it's going to slow it down massively. Already, like, you know, with Warriors Act and Ring does, you've got the damage that you need early on, so I don't think he's going to be sweating it out too much. I also think these rotations early on are going to be very important, because Osiris is someone to talk about heavily when we've been looking at these games, but I think Fine-OK, specifically the walls that Fine-OK has, can change any team fight just with a simple good ult from Fine-OK. But is he going to be there for the first Gold Fury? Is he going to be there for the Pyromancer? Well, he should be there for the Pyromancer. The Gold Fury is on the other side of the map. Those are going to be the big rotations for Fine-OK that I think are going to be important for the Dragons.
Yeah, and the rotations for Benji Gore, they're going to stick as well. And you know, the Runic Shield, great for in lane against Fine-OK, but if Hurrywind is your target and who you're jumping on, you're going to get some extra value out of the Runic Shield in that regard as well. Layers has already punished Fine-OK for an overextension earlier on. Will we see it yet again? There's Blink, there's Pin, but Fine-OK will walk on out of that one. So, no sweat out. Fine-OK is back here, and he'll waltz on away back to his Tier 1 tower. Sanford Soccer's been quiet here in this early game. Gore Layers has that one kill, that first blood, but things have really slowed down. And so we don't know when. That was a lot of thought for one quick word. When was the word I'm going for. I was going to say how, you know, a whole lot of choices there for me. When Sanford Soccer is going to start getting involved, I think is the next thing to look at here, because there are some great targets. There's Paul and Cyclone Spin as kind of the insta-delete options. And you're starting to get underway in that build here a little bit on this Pele. So one jungler's gotten involved early. Cyclone Spin's going to get involved around this Pyromancer with his ultimate. Polar Bear Mike jumped on. Paul gets the kill. The Jade Dragons now down a support, but a taunt from Layers keeps this fight in question, and Layers has got Sanford Soccer as well. Sam gets involved in all the wrong ways, and the Tartarus Titans get 2 more.
I mean, what a great way to jump on them. A good bait from the Pyromancer, and just enough of a pull. I was a little more curious, and I want to say cautious about it, when Benji goes for the leap, but he keeps the tether attached to Mike, finds the stun, and is more than happy to continue to find that kill. Of course, we get the Mannequin's damage as well that's being dealt by Layers. I think that they read the fight, they engage really well, and I was going to harp on the note you had mentioned, which was, man, yeah, I expected Sam on Pele to be a little more active in the early game. Something in the mid lane. It's what we've seen the last 3, so I was kind of anticipating something happening around 3 minutes. It's been crickets until now.
Gore, this is kind of scary for the Jade Dragons now, because what was a first blood and a little bit of a gold lead didn't result in much. Now it's another couple of kills, and we're starting to see some of, I think, the confidence that Benji is building up with here in this set. That's Osiris, through caution to the wind, jumped in, found another couple of assists there in that fight. But look who else benefits. Cyclone Spin. The ult takes him in. 1 level down now because Panda Cat was able to stick around, farm up the left side of this map. But a couple of extra assists. So everyone from the Tartarus Titans getting some level of benefit. Luckily, the Jade Dragons able to regroup after our pause and take down the Pyro. And so not all is lost just yet. Just about 500 gold down.
And actually, I like this maybe even more so just on the side of specifically the Dragons, because that's a big objective to be able to scoop up, and specifically to stifle the Titans. You started a good fight, you caused a good fight, and you won that fight if you're the Titans. You didn't find anything afterward. You didn't really find anything to further that lead, and that was a lot of the problem I had with the Dragons earlier on in game number 2. You had a 7,000 gold lead and weren't winning a lot of these neutral objectives. And now it's, well, still hovering around that 1,000 gold mark to separate these teams, but it's not massive experience. You've got a couple of leads going for the Titans, a couple of leads going for the Dragons across the board. And so I think it is going to be these groupings right now. We're looking at 3-on-3s that are really starting to occur. And that's where Sam gets involved. Layers has had some really good taunts. We have to look at these junglers to make the difference.
Yep. I'm kind of chuckling at the player damage charts there, Gore. Benji's done everything.
Benji!
Has Benji done more damage? 2, 3, 4, 5. I was going to ask if Benji's done more damage than everyone else in the game combined. No.
No.
but it's not
Close.
It's not far off. Yeah, he's close. The fact that we're even asking that question, I think, shows how much this Osiris.
You know what, Benji, smack Fine OK a little bit more.
Yeah, you'll get. Well, he's down to 7,000. Maybe a chance for Benji to get some more damage here as Cyclone Spin is ulted to the right side of the map. Should be I think needs to be a tier 1 tower now. Or he went under a little bit of pressure, instead putting pressure on Paul, but receiving some damage in mid. And it will end up being ult for tier 1 for Cyclone Spin.
If it makes you feel better, he's got more than the rest of his team combined, and more than, I believe, the Dragons combined here. So,
right.
Hey, keep going, Benji. I mean, he hasn't been able to turn a lot of that into kills himself with 3 assists.
Wow, this is an effective trade. If the Dragons got that tier 2, they'd be feeling great about it, because it was tier 1 on right, and tier 1, or in exchange for tier 1 on left. Jade Dragons got the 1 on left. And get 80% of the damage done to the tier 2 on the left side.
I think you're still happy with it.
So I think the Jade Dragons, you're right, Gore, are still feeling better about the map state, at least after that little bit of a push. And that's always that risk you're taking, isn't it, with that Chernobog ult, is you're taking yourself out of a lane. Panda Cat, it's an easy choice for himself there. I can't do anything else. I'm just going to keep pushing. And the Jade Dragons realize that tier 1 and right is gone. Final K just needs to survive, and we'll get some map pressure on left.
And one of the biggest things that we had talked about early on, which was, in my eyes, going to be Cyclone Spin and his ability to rotate, hasn't really come to fruition. He doesn't have the ult now, so he's going to have to walk back the old-fashioned way.
Well, Panda Cat sends snipes Layers and Paul's way. And that is the little bit of damage you see missing from that Erlong Shen health bar. Doesn't end up finding much there. Maybe thinking that the rest of his team was about to round out and engage. Final K was lurking behind the Tartarus Titans, but does not end up using the blink to find a route behind the Tartarus Titans there. So plenty of tower pressure here from the Jade Dragons. There's a tier 1 that ended up dying on the right side of the map as well, so effectively even in that lane, but the tier 1s in mid and left much more in favor of the Jade Dragons here. And the gold lead hasn't expanded out all that much. A 1,000 gold lead for the Tartarus Titans, where it was, 600 a few minutes ago. And so while the kills score are starting to or not starting, but have red in favor of the Tartarus Titans, the Jade Dragons have hung around in all the right ways.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you need to do in this kind of game. I mean, look at your composition, look at the other composition. Both of these, as you can see from the playstyle, don't want to fight right now. They want to wait for a lot of these groupings. And I'm excited to see how the Dragons coalesce. It's a team comp that, again, to me, it feels very Dragons-esque, but I can't see in my mind's eye how their team fight unfolds, whereas when I look at the Titans, you can see how that fight unfolds. You know more or less the way that they're going to try and stylize around it. So I'm excited to see what the Dragons have to offer, especially with an Oni Fury coming up. They've got a lot of pressure on the tower so far. They've knocked down one more than the Titans have been able to, and like you had mentioned, 80% damage on that tier 2. This is big.
Wow, the Tartarus Titans do a lot of damage to the Oni Fury, but Aurora takes a lot of damage in exchange. Sanford Soccer 3 levels down from Layers, doesn't care, rushes in, but Aurora takes almost nothing on the back end of that. Final K is in behind the Titans, but does not do anything. It's a stun, and it's a stagger onto Benji and Layers. The Jade Dragons get some good damage in. Can Panda Cat find the snipes with his ultimate? Won't attempt it here because he's got to leave. Cyclone Spin attempting to root down Final K, won't. Polar Bear Mike will be the sacrifice, and the Jade Dragons, 4 alive, will get out.
Now, normally this is one of those circumstances. I'd say, oh, well, the Dragons, they only lose their support. Oh, except they lost the Fury too. They did not get a good engage the way they wanted to, and nobody's got healers this time around, at least nowhere near the same state. I guess Aurora's passive taking through is helpful in terms of getting people through there. But they just did not have what they needed to get the kills. Panda Cat might have been able to find the snipes. I mean, so many people on the Titans were low, but they get 2 neutral objectives plus the kill, a good fight from them. I think that's a showcase. Sam wasn't able to do much in the backline. Nobody was when they dove.
And that was what I was bringing up as that fight broke out. Of course, Sanford Soccer is 3 levels down to Layers right now. Sanford Soccer is level 14, where Layers is 17. Layers is tied for top in the game. Sanford Soccer is only higher than the supports.
I'm pretty sure Sam had a lead 14-13 versus Layers earlier.
He's 4. As we're talking about it, Sam goes 4 levels down. We'll call it 3.5 maybe. Wow. That is a huge difference.
I swear to you,
no,
never mind. It was 14-13 for Layers.
Look, Layers is 3-0-1. So it's not like we're scratching our heads wondering how that's happened. This Erlang
A
Shen
little bit.
has just been. We're scratching our head on like the last 2 levels of that. Like maybe a level or 2 makes sense, but then we're like, what's happened in the
Like if Sam were
level
16
3
right
and
now,
4?
I'm
Right.
not confused about it. The fact that he just hit 15 is definitely. I mean, I'd
been
maybe speaking
outfarmed,
more to
outpressured.
what Layers is doing here and showcasing where his presence has been on the map, and more maybe so again the crickets from Sam's side. He jumps into the back of that fight, and you had mentioned it. Now it's highlighted. Maybe makes it even easier. Who are you going to kill? You were 14 to Paul's 17. You were 14 to Layers 17 at the time, and you're not going to be able to get enough damage out there onto the carries.
Yeah, Sam for Soccer, if the Tartarus Titans stick around on this Fire Giant's got to get something done, because now it's that 2,000 gold lead. It took us 20 minutes instead of 5 to get there. But that's been the inflection point in so many of these games where that 2,000 gold lead gets hit, and then everything else goes that team's way for the rest of the game, except for Game 2, where the Jade Dragons fumbled a bit of a lead there. PandaCat has maintained about a 1-level lead over Cyclone Spin. A lot of the rotations from the Chernobog ultimate to thank for that. Has Rage in the back pocket. On the other side, Cyclone Spin Gore has gone Ikavale, Oboe, into Exy and Chin Size. So the frontliners that'll be running at Cyclone Spin are going to be having a tough time.
And I actually like that for the Chernobog, because, I mean, think about the way his engage is going to work. Who's he going to land on? Maybe he does dive into the back line. If he has Layers, maybe Paul, someone to help him out. But for the most part, he's going to be looking for Burn. And Burn is what they're going to try to do here as well. I actually really like their engage. I like the way they're leveraging this.
Fire Giant beneath half HP. Final K is inside the Fire Giant pit with the rest of the Tartarus Titans. PandaCat dealing big damage to Benji. Can Hurrywin disengage? He'll do one better. He'll do a lot of damage, but look at the big stun on the Jade Dragons, and it's Benji jumping in. It's Paul dealing damage in there as well. Cyclone Spin's got the Scarab's Blessing because the Jade Dragons will not give up. PandaCat's got the snipes to even the score.
But the kills, look how low PBN is. Benji's still running.
Oh, Benji not able to get the kill. It's a 2-for-2. Carries alive for the Tartarus Titans. PandaCat alive and full HP for the Jade Dragons. This fight is even.
A great set of snipes. If PandaCat isn't able to connect on those, this is wildly different. In fact, I think we even see the Titans controlling a majority of the remainder of that fight, having Layers still available to them. But really, really good engage, and let's call it from Paul, right? He transforms. We were curious about it earlier. Who are you going to choose? He chose Fine-OK. That Cabrakan, a great wall to lock down 2 members of the Dragons to make sure they couldn't run away. Still alive. He's got, had to use his beads, his Aegis, and a lot in order to get those kills. But he's able to set up so much for his team that I think if the Titans can engage like that, despite the fact that the Dragons turned it around and kept it even, that's really promising for a lot of late game fights.
Yeah, effectively everyone, Gore, had to use both of their actives in that fight. Only PandaCat didn't use either. Everyone else on the Jade Dragons used both.
Cyclone Spin with his sunglasses on, like, I don't need to use my beads.
Yeah, who needs the beads? PandaCat and Fine-OK, Gore, they're looking towards the Fire Giant right now. The Tartarus Titans on different sides of the map. Cyclone Spin does not have his ultimate. Sam for Soccer gets taunted in by Layers here.
Oh, Layers.
Lots of damage connecting onto Layers and some CC in as well. Fine-OK's used his ultimate. That's now missing. Layers has as well. 1-for-1 in the ultimate department.
That was a very large flurry on Layers for him to still end up at 2/3 HP. I think that's the biggest deal to me.
Not all that tanky in his build.
Yeah, he hasn't really built anything to make sure he stays alive that well, but he's been able to do so no problem. And I think that's exactly where some of the worries I'm having about the Dragons are right now. Sam's still 3 levels down, and that's coming to mind with a lot of these fights. They're able to burn them down, or if they get good engages like that, most times Layers should die there. I think if they aren't able to find secures on these kills soon enough, the Dragons, a lot of these are slipping through their opportunity. But good news is that we're starting to hit that level 20 cap on the side of the Titans, so no matter what, you're going to close the gap between you.
Tartarus Titans will take down the Primal Fury. The Tartarus Titans playing with all the wind at their backs. And that same wind is acting as a cross breeze to the Jade Dragons right now, sending them askew. They find themselves 3,000 gold down to the Tartarus Titans in a must-win game to force a Game 5. Yeah, your prize for winning this set, Gore, is a date with the Camelot Kings tomorrow. So have fun with that.
It's the worst prize you could get.
Yeah, the way the Kings are playing.
But better yet, your prize, one step closer to a Phase 2 champion.
Yeah, that's what really matters, Gore, is one step closer to winning the Phase 2 playoffs.
We say that part, not the Kings part. It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, right. One step closer to winning the Phase 2 playoffs. Worry about how you get there a little bit later on. Tartarus Titans worrying about closing out this game here right now. I think you got to rewind to that previous fight, the 2v2, or the 2-4-2, I guess, and how, despite the Titans playing with all the pressure of this game, maybe a confidence boost that the Jade Dragons were able to find that much despite some level discrepancy.
I do think a lot of that, again, relies on the fact that you get a good engage from Paul. Like, how often is Paul going to get to transform and lock down 2 people? So there's already a boon for the Dragons. Like, hey, they can't bet on that every single time, although Paul is pretty good, so maybe they can,
maybe you can
at least bet like 75%. Like, he's probably going to do it, but you're not entirely sure every time. It's the snipes from Panda Cat that really made the difference for me. That Rom being able to hit a lot of damage from the backline, specifically onto carries, and make sure that they weren't able to withstand the onslaught otherwise that the Dragons were having. They also had good peel for Mike, who managed to get out, then come back in, then get out again. I think that it, like you said, is a lot of promise for this next fight. And relics are coming back up on cooldown. I think there were still like a couple of Aegises that were around 30 seconds maybe or less to come back. So I think they're in a better position now to continue this fight. The gold lead's not that massive. It was hovering around 3,000. And the kill lead means virtually nothing at this point. It's all about the 5-on-5.
And this is the Jade Dragons team, Gore, that regardless of where the gold is, they don't like just letting the game happen to them. They're going to show up to these.
Yeah,
when the gold lead is as small as it is, right? 3,000 isn't small, but in the grand scheme of potential gold leads is small, I guess, in the entire game of Smite. But the Jade Dragons with that type of gold lead, not a team who's just going to let you take the fire, take the Gold Fury, take our towers, take our Phoenixes. They will show up to these fights, and a lot of it, Gore, relies on the same things that went right in the previous fight, going right again here, especially around this FG. 24 minutes in, so we're a little bit away from it being enhanced. A couple stacks on the Rage for Panda Cat after that fight as well.
God.
What caught your eye there, Gordon?
Wards.
Oh, okay.
More than anything. Like, I mean, look at all of the Dragon ward coverage. There are so many blue and purple wards. The purple wards are their sentries. I mean, this is really, really good vision control from them just for the FG pit. But I also think it's funny that when you look at it, the Titans are sitting just outside the range of the one ward that's closest to them. I think this is a really good amount of control, specifically for Panda Cat, who is going to be looking for those snipes in the back. He's going to know exactly where everyone is, exactly what their health is when they do it, as well as for Sam to try and get engaged and kind of loop around to the back line. It will also catch specifically layers from getting to their backline before he's able to get there. That taunt is so crucial for the Titans' game plan. And with a Pyromancer in their pocket, I actually think that, again, the Dragons are playing this at a really good pace to keep themselves right on the edge. I mean, they still got 5 towers somehow still standing. They're in a really good spot for control here.
Interesting defensive choices here from the Tartarus Titans. A couple Spectral Armors picked up. And Panda Cat showed Rage earlier on, and that's when you get those Spectrals added into the build here for Benji and Aurora. But then alternates to something a little bit different here, Gore. We've seen a lot of dominances round out these builds, so if I had to guess, that's what Panda Cat is going towards here. If nothing else, maybe it feels like now the crit from the Rage is just going to be something a little nice, something a little extra. Rings out for a couple there. But now all of his damage won't necessarily be completely mitigated by these Spectral Armors.
It's bonus damage, and you can tell, at least in my eyes, that Rage being picked up means he's not focused on the front line. He's focused on the Cyclones, the Pauls, the Layers.
Well, it's going fast. Fire Giant is going down quickly. Polar Bear Mike and Fine OK have to act fast. Layers has tried to taunt one in, but it's only Fine OK that's there, so that ultimate now down. Sam for Soccer looking for Paul around
Still
the back.
low.
Fire Giant gets reset. And we'll start healing up here. Fine OK pulled back in, uses the beads, and he'll walk out.
Ult for ult, though. Layers uses the taunt. Fine OK uses the walls. And so Paul now is the one who could capably turn into the Cabrakan and throw up a lot of that disengage potential, throw away disengage potential from the Dragons, locking them down. And you had mentioned it, they burned that fast. I am really worried for the Dragons. If you don't have the vision, if you don't have the control that they just had when we were talking about the wards, I don't know that they get in there in time. I think that we see that FG go down for the Titans. And the longer this game goes, the more likely it is that it's going to hit enhanced before somebody's pulling it down. I look at Layers, his auto attack capabilities, Paul's damage, Cyclone's damage. Yeah, there's just so much the Titans can do to control
A lot
this.
of space that Benji is making here, and so the Tartarus Titans will show their Fire Giant damage again. And again, it's Final K and Polar Bear Mike that forced the Titans to reset it. We're going to slow reset this. The Jade Dragons back away just a little bit. Here's what worries me, Gore.
I bet it's the same worry I have.
Go ahead. What's your worry?
They're going to get it real low, and the Dragons are going to zone them out and then take it.
I was
Because that's what I was thinking.
Absolutely a concern that I have. I'm also concerned that, Paul at 103 has had a great game on this Morgan so far. It feels like one of those types of picks. It's just a matter of time until a stealth catches somebody in kind of one of these slow, methodical, you can kind of tune out for a second type games. It's only a matter of time, I feel like, until a big stun, damage, bursty, Polynomicon flurry of damage catches onto one of these carries.
We've seen that more times than I can count, right? Where it is like this back and forth. Everyone's tiptoeing around each other. Yeah, you can burn the FG, but also we're here. You don't have secure. We can steal it. And then, like you said, all of a sudden it's like, oh, Paul's on Panda Cat, and Panda Cat's dead. It doesn't matter. Yep. From that point forward, if Paul dies, he started off the fight the way they need to, and the rest of the Titans would be able to jump on him. And that's usually where we've seen a lot of that pivot point around this Morgan end up going. Right now, though, he's not even around this fight. Yeah. I think this is a good spot for the Dragons to potentially put some pressure on there. But I don't know if they know he's nowhere nearby.
Okay, has to use his ult to get out. That is brutal now for the Jade Dragons. They might have to delay. If the Tartarus Titans can take advantage of that, now with chin size, 4 layers, and for Cyclone Spin, no surprise. This Fire Giant is going as quickly as it is. Final K not able to go back to base. Realizes that the Titans are on the FG, and they still are. Aurora has not reset things just yet. Neither is Layers. The rest of the damage being delayed for just a moment. It's a blink in from Final K and Abduct, and the Tartarus Titans secure the FG. Final K locked into the pit. Hurrywin's got to get something done here. Nearly gets the kill onto Paul. PBM is going to chase down the mid laner. Deep in the back line. Snipes from Cyclone Spin. Not enough this time, but Layers has gotten a kill. And Final K is down as well. The Jade Dragons lose 2, and the Tartarus Titans continue their onslaught.
Oh, the turnaround damage from Panda Cat was so good, but he's got no frontliners.
Gore, Panda Cat might go down here. The Tartarus Titans might have dealt the killing blow to the Jade Dragons.
That's a good turnaround.
Turns it around. Double kill for Panda. Keeps the Jade Dragons in game 4.
He's so low, though, and they still have Cyclone Spin. They still have Aurora. Look, that is a lot of frontline, but look at all the towers that are still standing. The Dragons haven't lost anything in their map state. It's going to take the Titans forever if they tried to rush that down. So they're going to have to pump the brakes. Yes, you get a good fight. You get a good win. Panda Cat, maybe savior of the game. Otherwise, Titans are barreling into the room right now to kill off and end the Dragons' playoffs open. Wow. I think that is a good, nice little breather for them. I'm most impressed. There's so much to break down in that fight. The thing that impressed me the most is specifically the damage that ends up happening onto Paul. Paul gets incredibly low, to the point he's 1 hit away, and yet they recognize that the only person who's chasing him at the time is PBM.
God.
And this is just...
That is disgusting.
Hey, remember that conversation we were having about the crit being for the Layers of the world?
That is
disgusting. Is why.
Oh
I mean, there's just so much in there, dude.
That was nuts. The sidestep, the rollout, the crits, that's got a little bit of everything for you. Yeah, if you're a Hunter main or just a fan of Smite, that's a replay you're going to want to watch a couple of times. Panda Cat not only keeps the Jade Dragons in the Phase 2 playoffs, but I think that delays out the rest of this FG push, maybe, Gore. There's not a lot that the Tartarus Titans can look at here. There's an exposed Phoenix in mid. You're probably going to take the Tier 1 tower on left.
I think you should push for Tier 2 on left.
But the base, as far as Phoenixes and back go,
yeah.
But, for the time being at least, left uncracked.
The only thing, I mean, yeah, looking at relics, like support relics are going to be up med for Aurora as well, which has been pretty helpful, having that little bit of healing come through, especially with the healers being stripped away. I think that you're not trying to talk about cracking the base right now. Well, you've got a few seconds. I mean, Cyclone Spin has FG. That opens up all conversations for trying to knock down a Phoenix. But it is a risky fight to take. You lose that, there's a Tier 2 that is 1 hit on the other side.
Whoa.
Instead, he's going for the 1v1.
Cyclone Spin looking to 1v1.
Oh, no, he's just going for defense.
Is there... All right, so I don't know how that works. I'm going to hold off on this because it's actually a pretty important fight. If Sanford Soccer had backed...
Yeah.
And Cyclone Spin... There's no... Is there any interaction there where Cyclone Spin ends up traveling to Sam, who's back in the fountain and then dying?
I think not once he selected him.
Okay. I don't know.
There might be like a
truthfully, I have
really,
no idea how
really,
that
really
works.
small window, because sometimes that's where it gets really wonky, when it's like, if he clicked it right as Sam had been teleported back,
Right.
does it take him to where Sam is or where Sam was? Normally, I believe it would just pull you to where you engaged it. So he should be safe no matter what.
Right, I think
But you
no
never
matter
know.
what.
In that like 0.02 second
one of those
window,
things
that's where things get
It's one of
wonky.
those things you never think of.
Until it happens.
Until it happens, right? It didn't happen. Did not happen here this time.
Not a worry.
Gore, the Jade Dragons are leaning heavily on Panda Cat here in Game 4. 301 affected all 4 of the kills. You look at everyone else. 0-2 for Hurry. 0-3 for Mike. 0-2 for Sanford Soccer. Panda Cats had to come up big. And the Tartarus Titans are going to delay out, or are going to be delayed out on the remainder of this FG buff. Important to look at the Tiamat minions on left. That Tier 2 tower is low. And so Fire Giant just about a minute from coming back up. The buff falls off the Titans now. And so you're going to be able to build up some wave pressure on left if you're the Dragons.
Yeah, all the relics are available in the game, at least the important ones. The one that is down, you can actually see where the bracer was placed on the minimap, just on the Titan side of the Fire Giant pit. That's crucial to me because of the buff that they can get going into a fight. That is a good spot for Aurora to have left it. And now with everything else available to him, again, that meditation being crucial as well, I think that they're in a good position to try and burn it down. I mean, we saw how fast that Fire Giant disappeared. The Dragons weren't so sure of their timing, which luckily they are. They're going to be just fine. And yeah, ward coverage is a big deal here. So many sentries, as well as now some spectrals coming through. Yeah, for layers, that makes the most sense to me after what Panda Cat just did.
And Paul.
Stifle it.
And Paul. Paul's also got spectral armor.
Yeah,
at the end of
stifle
that build there.
Stop him. Tell him no.
Why not? Why not? When Panda Cat makes a play like that, you gotta respect it. And especially if what I just said is true, where the Jade Dragons are relying on Panda Cat. A lot of the damage onto Benji anyway. The Fire Giant is still not spawned. It is going to spawn as we speak here. And so these couple of trades actually could be impactful. If you have to send somebody back to base, that's where the Jade Dragons can pull an advantage. Tiamat minions take down the Tier 2 tower on the left and are going to start moving in onto that Phoenix soon. The Tartarus Titans might have to get somebody back in base to deal with that.
That's the most difficult call to make. Benji doesn't have teleport. Really difficult to argue sending him back. You need
the pings
to either take the fight, take the Fire Giant, or start your back.
The Jade Dragons know this. They're pinging down the left side of the map here. What you can't do if you're the Jade Dragons is lose a big fight here, because the Tartarus Titans nearly won the game just a moment ago. You need to delay things for the Tartarus Titans. Paul was thinking about backing, will not back. Half HP on the left side Phoenix. The Tiamat minions likely getting that one done. Cyclone Spin goes back. That's the right target. You have the ult. You can get back into the fight. But that is now a win condition for the Jade Dragons if this next fight goes well.
And this is only capable, look at the ward coverage again from the Titans. They can see where the Dragons are. They know they're not getting aggressive into the FG pit. And you saw them back off, so you know you're not too stressed about where they are. In fact, I actually like this. Paul is even going over there. They're going to strip their buffs away. They're going to do the Oni Fury while they're waiting.
And there's a world, Gore, where Paul can transform into Cyclone Spin on the Chernobog as well. If
and
you
just
need
teleport over
if you need
there.
a double fly in, you have the ability to do it. Oni Fury for Cyclone Spin, and the rest of the Tartarus Titans will help out on the left side of the map here as well as everywhere else. Do the Jade Dragons now hear that audio cue, push their advantage? Final K is trying to stun onto Benji. There's potential for a wall on the other side of this, but the Jade Dragons don't want to spend it. Benji being chased down though. Hurrywind is there for a little extra damage. Shielding onto Benji helps out, and the solo laner dancing on the edge stays alive.
Hurry's ult gets expended for that one. Ultimately, the only thing that really ends up being used for that engagement.
Whoa.
So you get an Oni Fury that's going to help deal with those minions.
Benji can't go back.
But you
Benji
lose
can't
positioning.
go back. Benji is half HP here. Polar Bear Mike is losing some health as well. Final K separating things out. The enhanced Fire Giant has been reset. The Jade Dragon's the one playing a little bit further forward here. They are in a 10,000 gold deficit and still driving this bus. The Jade Dragons not ready to go out of the Phase 2 playoffs. They want to push us on to a Game 5, but they got to win a fight against the Titans first.
The only place that you're really feeling that gold disparity right now, a few items still needing to be finished, but PBM doesn't have his last item versus Aurora, who's been able to not only get his upgraded starter, upgrade his relics, but also now has a finished.
Started.
Yeah, Ethereal staff down.
Started. Enhanced Fire Giant begun by the Tartarus Titans. Benji takes A whole
So
lot of
much.
damage, but he is tethered down onto Hurrywin. Panda Cat fall. They're 1v1 here. Panda Cat able to roll away, but
the
Cyclone
snipes.
Spin ult into the back line. The snipes on down, onto Cyclone
Gotta
Spin.
kill him.
But Panda Cat crashes back to Earth. Cyclone Spin puts him in the dirt. Fido-K needs to get one here. Sanford Soccer. It's a massive knockup, and Sanford Soccer picks up one. Fido-K adds another. The Jade Dragons are doing it to him, baby. Aurora, the last one alive. It's gonna be the DSI, and the Jade Dragons come up big.
I mean, that is such a huge turn, but look, the minions, the Oni wave, pushed up on their left-hand side. But Dave,
can they end?
50
They don't
seconds
have
with
Panda.
nobody here. I
They don't
think they
have
can just
Panda.
run this down. There's nothing to worry about. You have no stress in the world. Just do it.
The Jade Dragons, Gore, they're not concerning you at all. They'll walk down the mid lane here. I got a bit of a head rush standing up after that one. You are down 10,000 gold. You lose your carry immediately at the start of the fight. And then you turn it around. They're not going to look for
they don't
the
have
end,
the damage
Gore.
for
They
it.
don't have the damage. Panda Cat is
no.
dead. And this game goes on.
This is now the most awkward. I guess you could still get a Pyromancer. You should be able to get FG.
Somehow
yeah, 20
the Jade
seconds
Dragons
before
lose
anybody
more
else.
of their base than the Tartarus Titans do.
But they get the EFG.
You have to do this. They're not doing it fast. Cyclone Spin is up in 10. I don't see a world where he has his ult back in time. So it should be Enhanced Fire Giant for the Jade Dragons. Will be on all 5 members of the team. And so the end is not nigh, not just yet. But it might be for the Tartarus Titans with one more push.
I mean, that Phoenix is low. And with an EFG, it gives the Dragons everything to play with, right? They have the field to work with. But I'm still a little worried about it. I mean, this is one of those moments where, like, base races start to become part of the conversation with the Titans, be able to find their way to push down left-hand side, go straight through the Phoenix into the Titan room, while the Dragons, I should say, run through either mid or through left to try and burn down simultaneously the opposite Titan, not having to worry about those backdoor protections thanks to the EFG. It opens up a whole different conversation in the playbook for the Dragons. At the same time, something in my mind is screaming, well, still one fight away. Whether it's a defense from the Titans, a defense from the Dragons, or something that happens somewhere here in the middle on neutral ground, it is one good fight from either side and being able to find the win here. I think they overcommit onto Panda Cat. I think you watch
Panda
that
Cat
fight
lived
back.
for so long.
He lived
for so long.
They put 3 people waiting for him to fall down, and while they're waiting, they're taking so much damage. Cyclone Spin just gets eaten alive. A great ult from Fido-K as well. I think the Dragons really understood, hey, their playbook is kill
the way they're
Panda.
playing.
Let's just keep them alive a little bit.
Look at the way the Jade Dragons are playing, Gore. They've got Enhanced Fire Giant, an exposed Phoenix on left, Tiamat minions in mid and right, and we are chilling on our side of the jungle. I imagine as some pressure builds up, we'll see the Jade Dragons extend out, which we do see now. But it took them a minute to get there. I think similar concerns for the Dragons that you have outside of game, the Jade Dragons probably have inside of game. Tiamat minions are going to help out here. Tier 2 still stand in mid and right. And you still got 2 minutes, 15 seconds on the Enhanced Fire Giant buff. So the Jade Dragons in a commanding power position here, fighting in to the Tartarus Titans Titan defense.
Team fight checklist, relics, ults, all up. So ultimately it comes down
Bracer.
except for the Bracer.
Well, technically if it's down,
we'll have to
it's
see
up, right?
where it's placed. I can't tell if that. I think it's placed in mid as of right now. So the Titan's not going to have that boost.
Look at Aurora's
for the
health
Phoenix
bar.
defense.
There's so many notches on Aurora's health bar, it just looks like one gigantic bar right now. I can't even see the difference.
It's just a darker red
It's just
than
a darker
everybody
red. Yeah,
else's.
Benji's close to that as well. Chin size picked up for Panda Cat here, drops off the Icavale. Cyclone Spin also drops off the Icavale for the Wind Demon. So 4 Spectral Armors against the crit of Panda Cat. Fully stacked Rage are going to be important here.
That Wind Demon on Cyclone Spin, though, there's no Spectral Armor on the other side. His crits could ring true and be a lot more helpful for the Titans.
Helps out with Silver Branch as well with some of that extra attack speed. And so a good pickup for Cyclone Spin to get closer to the end of the game here. Tiamat minions working into the mid lane. 1 minute left on the Enhanced Fire Giant buff of the Jade Dragons. They've been able to tickle the left side Phoenix just a bit. But laying in wait is Polar Bear Mike, Sanford Soccer, and the rest of these Jade Dragons to find that engagement, and the engagement is now. Polar Bear Mike blinks into the base of the Tartarus Titans. Fido-K kiting on backwards. The Phoenix is still alive, but look at the damage. The front line's taken. Cyclone Spin swings first. Polar Bear Mike, He's all alone with the rest of
Their
the
front
Titans.
line's gone.
Enhanced FG does not matter, and Cyclone's been pushing on the gas.
And that's immediately the way to go in. Look at the crits ringing true. Panda Cat has no health to work with.
Panda Cat's gotta go big here, but Benji is gonna chase him down.
Looking for the
Sanford
slow.
Soccer is in the back line here, but I'm not sure Sam
One more
can
hit!
do much. Benji comes up big. Panda Cat in the grave. The Jade Dragons are as well. Bye-bye, Dragons. Sanford Soccer, the last one in this game.
And he's going to try to turn this into a base race, maybe? I mean, he's got minions, and he's going for the Phoenix. He's still got the FG buff, but what can he do versus Benji?
Gore, I don't think he can do much. Benji is going to win this 1v1. The Tartarus Titans pouring into the base of the Jade Dragons. Your Phase 1 champions being upset in round number 1. An enhanced Fire Giant fight goes to the Dragons, but it does not matter. Tartarus Titans win it 4.
I mean, that is exactly the kind of play you want to see. Look, if you change junglers, if you go through what they did in terms of rosters, this is what you want out of the Titans. A good pickup here, a good win against the Dragons, a great way to start it off. I mean, they lost that first game so heavily that it felt like it was going to be 3, and the Dragons were just going to run through them. So good turnaround from them as well. I mean, look, this Titans team is something to look at.
We get to watch them play the Kings tomorrow, too.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Playoff Smite is something else, Gormizer. I'll tell you what. The Jade Dragons make things interesting. You called it right, though. In the back of your mind, you're like, feels like one more thing could go wrong here. That Phoenix Siege, not even close. With an enhanced Fire Giant, not even close. The Tartarus Titans melt the front lines.
Yeah.
And the Jade Dragons had no leg to stand on. The carries couldn't get it done. And the Tartarus Titans will win this 1-4. 3 straight games to the Titans, and they find a matchup against the Kings tomorrow. What a way to start off this weekend in Smite. Gore and I will take a break. When we come back, the desk will round out the day.
Hey there, Smite fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240Hz monitors. Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality. We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Welcome back, Smite fans. If you didn't like that game, I got bad news for you. You don't like Smite that much, because that game was a lot of fun to watch. An incredible Game 4 with the Tartarus Titans punching their ticket to the semifinals tomorrow up against the Camelot Kings. Cannot wait for that. Before we move on and break down the rest of the game, though, got to give a quick shout-out, of course, to our title sponsor of the SPL here in Season 8, Alienware. You can head on over to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW in order to secure the best deals on all of their best products. And make sure you're hitting them up on Twitter, Instagram, the rest, at Alienware, or joining their global community at alienwarearena.com. Again, big thanks to Alienware for being our title sponsor here in Season 8, and I'm sure they were very happy to be attached to a game that was that exciting to watch. I mean, it was the Titans who were ahead by a considerable amount. Then all of a sudden, the Dragons come roaring back, and then it looks like the Titans are going to win, but Panda Cat has the best movement on the planet. And then it looks like, it's EFG. They couldn't end. They go to get EFG, but then they die on the left side, Phoenix. I mean, an unbelievable back-and-forth game, Taco.
Yeah, Panda Cat might have to rename to Panda Goat, by the way, for that hero play at the end. And even though it didn't lead to the game outcome that I'm sure the Jade Dragons were hoping for to try and extend this to a 5-game series, still an incredible moment. Like, to be able to maintain your mental in that sort of instance, I'm sure, Bobby, you would even know from a pro player standing, it is tough when you watch your entire front line in front of you just fall apart, and yet you still have the sense about you to realize, I can make this play happen.
Yeah, I'm usually the front line that's like dying at the beginning of a fight, but like, yeah, I know all about that. I mean, it really was incredible. The fact that you can get so low on health and still know like where you need to walk instead of just like walking straight or just like walking away from the enemy team, and then like just like the mental composure to be able to roll back in or like walk back in to be able to take that fight and then win it and hit the autos. There's an incredible play by him.
Huge play by him. The problem that happened in this game is on this left side Phoenix Siege. FineOK died without getting his ultimate off. Just can't happen in these sorts of moments, right? I mean, this fight is over before FineOK uses his ultimate. Sam doesn't use his ultimate this whole fight. I don't know what did that much damage to Panda Cat in that fight, but all of a sudden, it's all going horribly. Then it's going great for the Dragons, and then a just abysmal Phoenix fight.
Yeah, Fine even had beads there, so I don't know exactly. Maybe he just underestimated how much damage he was going to take there. I don't know if it was the crit maybe from Cyclone that just kind of shredded him a bit, but he definitely just took way too much damage, sat in that Phoenix, and was in enemy range for too long and just died too quickly.
13,000 damage for Fine, okay, but very effective damage. Don't want to get it twisted there, but 33k for Benji on that Osiris. Yeah, still pretty good in the solo lane, it turns out, for Benji. Another year, another land where Benji pops off and makes big plays happen. What can you know? And the Tartarus Titans now set up to go up against the Camelot Kings tomorrow. Remember, that is the side that they chose. The Kings wanted the winner of this matchup, but I don't know if this is the team that they expected. Genetics, after that set, tweeted, well, that was unexpected. So now maybe they've got to change up their game plan a little bit, but that's for tomorrow to worry about. Today, of course, we've got the Titans with the victory. Believe we've got Layer standing by for the post-game interview, the newest member of the Tartarus Titans. Layers, congratulations on a big win today. Talk to me about Game 1, man, because Game 1 obviously did not go your guys' way, kind of a one-sided stomp in favor of the Dragons. How did you guys bounce back from that type of performance?
I think in that game, Sam kind of just ran the game. He had Erlang, and he was just popping off in mid. And they just had like a massive gold lead off that. And we were like, if we don't let Sam like dictate the game, we kind of just like beat them. Because I think the second game, we were down like 8k gold, and we just ended up like just demolishing them in fights. And from that point forward, we're like, we're not losing to this team. So
that last game, though, man, a super big back and forth. I mean, that must have been a total roller coaster of emotions. Walk me through that Game 4.
You guys watched it. It went from us sieging or for us dancing around fire for like 10, 20 minutes, and then them getting it. We thought they were going to end. We were all dead for like a minute, and we're like, did they end? And then like they didn't have their hunter, so we were like, okay, well, maybe we're good. They get EFG, they come right, and I guess they just, I mean, that was a long siege attempt from them, but we, I don't know, we just, Cyclone popped off, Benji with his axe kept poking them, and we just won, so.
And that leads you up to a matchup up against the Camelot Kings tomorrow, the top seed. First of all, are you surprised that they picked your match to face the winner of? And secondly, how do you think you match up against them?
I'm not really surprised, given that they struggle against the Leviathans. I think they lost to the Leviathans that last phase, and maybe they're just scared of the team, or they just don't prefer not to play against that team. I think we match fine. I think we've been playing amazing, and we've been scrimming a lot. I think we can win against any team here, so.
Hey, man, excited. If it's anything like that said, I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Congratulations again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of confidence coming from Layers, and well-earned, because this Tartarus Titans team are playing at a level we haven't seen from them in Season 8. And all of a sudden, the Camelot Kings are going to be going up against a team with a lot of momentum. And I think that that's important. I mean, surely getting first seed, getting to choose your side, that's all very good. But it feels pretty good to be coming in with momentum instead of a team that just watched day one. Right, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think a lot of people don't even mind playing through that first round. It's just like that warm-up game. It kind of gets you ready for the semifinals, and it's I mean, if you win the set, it's a great feeling. You have the momentum. The only problem is you have to win the set to start it. So obviously you got to give them a little bit of momentum going into this game, and they've got a pretty good chance.
Big game tomorrow at Bolts and Leviathans. That will actually be our first game that we're broadcasting, and it will be in studio, so you know the energy is going to be there for that one. And then the Camelot Kings up against the Tartarus Titans. Taco, you can't go wrong whenever you're tuning in tomorrow.
No, there is just way too much high-caliber Smite, I think, that's going to be taking place here. And the fact that we even get to experience another land treat from the Leviathans and Bolts, those sets are always so fantastic to kind of get it. I feel bad for the crowd that's watching at home that they can't actually be here with us in studio seeing that take place.
Always a lot more energy whenever the players are here on land. So very excited for that. Again, starting at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So make sure you do not miss it. Do not be late. We're going to have a great game right off the rip for you tomorrow, and that should be a lot of fun. And then, of course, Kings-Titans. With the Titans playing like that, give me a break. It's going to be an absolute blast. Very, very fun day of Smite. Anything surprise you today, Bobby? Did anything catch you off guard?
I mean, not really. Leviathans kind of put away the Warriors. Wasn't that close of a set. And I think, personally, I thought this was going to be a pretty close set, and I actually think the Titans played pretty well. The game 2, I think, was a little on edge for them. But, I mean, overall, they played very well, and they have a good chance tomorrow.
It just seems as though that game 2 kind of built up a lot of momentum for the Tartarus Titans here today, and they just kept rolling with it. And based off Layer's confidence in the interview, definitely looking forward to seeing how that King setup goes.
It's going to be great. So again, 1 p.m. start tomorrow right here on twitch.tv/SmiteGame. That does it for us today, though. So thank you everyone for watching. For Taco, Inbound, myself, everyone from production, all the casters, thanks so much for watching Phase 2 Playoffs Day 1. We'll see you tomorrow. But for tonight, you know we can peach it.